A cold and frosty start for many. Eastern areas will remain dry with spells of increasingly hazy sunshine. Western parts will see increasing cloud, rain and some hill snow spreading slowly east. It's now 4 minutes past 1. Now on 5 Live, Calum Macdonald stays up all night.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Oh, hello. Well, Thursday the 17th of January 2019 was the day that I got stuck in traffic for a lot longer than I'd hoped, that we reached the countdown and 71 days until Brexit, that I got to say hello to the brilliant actors Asa Butterfield and Emma Mackey. Prince Philip, of course, was trending on Twitter after a car crash, while Tony Blair emerged to have a go at Jeremy Corbyn. The US government shutdown reached its 26th day. That a picture of a lady called Ocean went viral because she is next to a massive great white shark. Kid you not. Also snowed in Scotland, and a new episode of Brexit Cast landed to try to guide us through the chaos. It was the day that Jeremy Clarkson said this.
I mean, you're Radio 5, aren't you? So we're broadcasting now to 20 or 30 people. If those 20 or 30 people are really, really happy, then everybody is doing a great job.
And one of Emma Barnett's guests said this.
They took all that muscle, veins and nerves from my back and stuff, and they basically just made a penis.
Well, let's see what Friday the 18th's got for us on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Well, good morning, hello, 6 minutes past 1 on 5 Live. How's it going, everybody? Thanks very much for your company. We're here till 5 o'clock this morning, staying up all night with you, keeping you company. And thanks very much for being there. Do text us if you're up and about and just tell us why. I find it so confusing. I'm normally in bed at like 10 o'clock at night. Don't know about you, Anna.
Yeah, early nights for me.
Yeah.
I like to, especially when you do late nights.
Yeah, night shift tends to break me a little bit. So if you're up and about, I know lots of people are working, lots of people are driving. It's only text if it's safe to do so. But 85058 is the number. Just let us know why you're up and why you're listening to 5 Live tonight, because it's great that you're there. Let me just tell you a little bit about what's coming up on Up All Night then over the next little while. In the next few minutes, an interview that I'm really excited about, actually, with a guy called Matt Deitsch from March for Our Lives. You'll probably recognise the name of that movement. It's the one that emerged out of the tragic school shooting in Florida nearly a year ago. And so we caught up with Matt to find out how things are going.
The people in Congress, the Senate Majority Leader, and the President need to know that we will not stop until we see these policies enacted, because our lives are on the line every single day.
So Matt tells us what 2019 holds for the March for Our Lives movement. That's coming up in the next few minutes. Plus, from 1:30, a bit of a special part of the programme, actually, where we hear from a few really cool people, who, by the way, I now consider as friends.
Okay.
Yeah, including Josh from Love Island.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's got 1 million followers on
Best
Instagram.
buds.
And, well, actually, he follows me. We DM all the time. It's
Oh.
brilliant. So Josh Denzel from Love Island, a finalist on Love Island, no less, will be with us. We had a great chat a little while ago. Him and Nikki and Sammy as well, the YouTube sensations, as well as them, Sarah Manavis, who's from the New Statesman. We're kind of looking with them at big moments on the internet and how they've kind of defined culture and that kind of thing. And one of them, you might remember Stephen Nolan said this about.
It's a load of piffle.
You might remember last year that boxing match between Logan Paul and KSI, which of course 5 Live had exclusive coverage of. But yeah, well, that was one of the defining moments that we'll be talking about. Plus a whole bunch of other stuff. We've got a guy called Joe Delaney on, who's an Instagram fitness personal trainer type guy. He's very cool and literally the buffest man I've ever seen in real life. It was very intimidating.
You might have to show me some pictures.
Well, yeah. I'll let you have a little browse of Instagram for that.
Thanks.
So all of that coming up, plus news, just good chat, keeping you company, you keeping us company. That's how it works on 5 Live.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Okay, we should start with some news, I think, because yesterday evening, Thursday evening, there was a car crash, of course, involving the Duke of Edinburgh. It was near the Queen's Norfolk estate, Sandringham. The accident was pretty dramatic. In fact, it was dramatic enough to flip his car. There's some pictures and videos and stuff doing the rounds on the BBC News website right now. Buckingham Palace, though, says that the 97-year-old Duke of Edinburgh was not hurt. He walked away, was a bit shaken up, but wasn't injured. Our correspondent is Johnny Diamond, and earlier I asked him what we know about what happened.
We know there was a collision between a car driven by the Duke of Edinburgh, which was a Land Rover, and another car that had two people in it, at least two people in it. We know that the car that was driven by the Duke of Edinburgh flipped or managed to turn on its side because there was a photo sent to a local radio station of the Land Rover on its side, resting on the passenger side of the car. So the impact or the way that this accident evolved must have been fairly violent for the car to have been flipped. Big heavy car like a Land Rover. The Duke was, according to eyewitnesses, or an eyewitness that the BBC spoke to, was sort of helped out of the car and was very, very shocked. But the palace says that he was uninjured. He was looked at by a doctor, unsurprisingly, but he wasn't given any medical treatment and he had no injuries. The two of the people in the other car did apparently have minor injuries and I think were treated at a nearby hospital.
The pictures are dramatic, Johnny, to say the least. It looks like it was pretty serious.
Yeah, this is not a sort of a little crunch. This wasn't sort of going into the back of another car and getting out and saying sorry. This was clearly an impact at some speed. It just wouldn't have flipped a car as heavy as the Land Rover unless it had been a pretty serious one. And it is, I think, fair to say it's pretty astonishing that the Duke, who is, 5 months short of his 98th birthday and has not been in the best of health recently, had a hip replacement last year, but the Duke managed to get away uninjured. So there is good news out of this. Obviously, sympathies for the drivers of the other car, which we think was a Kia, the people in the other car who did have minor injuries. But it could have been a lot worse, I think, for everyone involved, given what looks like the violence of the accident.
And I suppose the sort of obvious question when I saw this was, what on earth is he doing driving on public roads anyway? How common is it for him to be out driving around?
Well, I mean, like other 97-year-olds in relatively good health, he is allowed to drive where he wants to. He has a full driving licence, clean as far as we know. No points that we know of. So there's nothing that would necessarily stop him. I suppose some people might say, look, he is the consort to the Queen. He is the Duke of Edinburgh. He shouldn't be taking risks at his age. But I mean, this thing has been said about him and to him in many of the long decades that he's lived. He was told he shouldn't be flying when he took up flying because it was too dangerous for the Queen's husband to do that, and he did that for a good few years. He's been told he should scale back his activities, and when in his 70s he was still ramping up what he was doing. He is a very, very independent-minded man who has, had to buckle down to the ways of the palace and the ways of royalty, and at various times has chafed pretty obviously against the restrictions he's been placed under. But I think it would have been a brave courtier who said, perhaps up until now, Your Royal Highness, maybe you should give up the wheel. And I think he would have told them in a forthright manner what they should do with that opinion. Things may change now. Who knows?
Well,
Things may change now. Yeah.
I guess as well, the Queen herself, we've seen the Queen pictured driving around, haven't we? She quite enjoys getting in the Range Rover and going for a spin.
Yes, I mean, look, and both of them are in relatively good health, for people in their 90s, and clearly think that they should still enjoy the same kind of things that they've enjoyed all their lives. So no one has really said that they shouldn't drive. I mean, the Queen doesn't drive herself on public roads. She drives on various estates. It's worth pointing out, Prince Philip took personal responsibility for Sandringham. And modernised it and sort of took hold of the whole estate. And presumably he'd quite like to see that it is still running well, even if he doesn't have quite such hands-on responsibility.
Johnny Diamond reporting there on that car crash involving the Duke of Edinburgh. The 97-year-old, of course, isn't hurt. This is Up All Night. Hello, I'm Calum Macdonald. And if you're listening at nearly 1:15 on a Friday morning, just let me know why. If you would, that'd be nice. A few people have already done that. You can text 85058 is the number. Jonesy says he's on the night shift at DHL and he loves Up All Night. Well, we love you, Jonesy. Hello. Jenna in Bristol has apparently, and I mean, this is a rubbish way to spend a Thursday, isn't it? Spent the night working on her tax return. She's not sure she could sleep without something to take her mind off receipts. Hope we can do the trick. Well, we'll do our best. And Aaron's driving home to Manchester from Sheffield and listening to 5 Live. I hope it was safe for you to send that text, Aaron. 85058 is the text number to get in touch. This is 5 Live. And actually, I believe there's some tennis on somewhere.
The best live sport.
Australian Open Tennis, live from Melbourne.
There is a fantastic programme of tennis coming your way.
It's a beautiful evening in Melbourne. Rapt attention inside the Rod Laver Arena.
It's a swinging banana serve.
And he's hit the winner of his life.
The most intense rally of the match.
Both boxers on their feet applauding for that one.
An extraordinary spectacle.
We have our first championship point.
Australian Open Tennis
Continues this morning from 7 on 5 Live Sports Extra. Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Now, on February the 14th last year, Matt Deitsch was buying balloons and cake. It was his little sister's birthday. And then his mum phoned him. It was about 2:30, and she said there was something happening at the school. That school was Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, where Matt had actually graduated from the year before. Matt's now the chief strategist at March for Our Lives, which is, of course, the movement of young people across primarily young people, I should say. It's a kind of mix of everyone, I suppose. But that movement across the United States, which campaigns for tighter controls on gun ownership. I was catching up with Matt earlier, and he's a really, really interesting guy. Started by asking him if everybody involved in the movement were satisfied with their progress by the time of last year's midterm elections.
Satisfied isn't the right word. I think that if we look back on what we were able to accomplish, this was the more young people voted in this midterm election than any other midterm election in American history in our modern democracy. Looking back in 2018, especially the end of 2018 with the midterm election, it was full of a lot of really big successes for our movement. Our young people really stepped up around the country. Our hundreds of chapters mobilized, registered more young people to vote than ever before in a single effort. And we saw more young people vote in the 2018 midterm election than any other midterm election in American history. It had the highest youth turnout percentage. So in our modern democracy, the numbers go back to pre-World War II era before most people in America could vote. So this is a huge accomplishment for the March for Our Lives movement. And we now have more members of Congress that align their moral compass with a gun sense agenda. And so we're able to have more people working on gun violence prevention than ever before. And we've already seen that in the House with bills like H.R. 8 being introduced. There's already been multiple gun sense bills introduced. So we just want to keep getting these incremental wins and see how far we can take this before we can end gun violence in America.
Can you take us back to February 2018 and how that day affected you and how it unfolded for you as well, I guess, just for some context for our listeners?
So February 14th is my little sister's birthday. She was at the school and my brother was at the school, and the school that I graduated from. Sorry, I'm going to go back.
That's okay.
February 14th, Valentine's Day, is my little sister's birthday. She, at the time, was a freshman. Now she's a sophomore, still attending Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. And my brother was a senior at the time. And the day was just very heavy because it didn't feel real. But at the same time, we all knew what was happening, that this was something normal in America. And it was incredibly hard to believe at first until we saw the scoreboard on the TV that showed, it was almost like a scoreboard of like how many people had been killed in all of these school shootings. And to see the school that I attended, that my brother and sister attended, up there was incredibly heartbreaking. And I felt in that moment incredibly hopeless and helpless because I had cared about this issue. I had posted all about different school shootings and different mass shootings that happened in America. One of my first Instagram posts ever was the Sandy Hook shooting, and I was in middle school at the time. And I posted about, I sent my thoughts and prayers because I thought that was enough then. I was indoctrinated into the system that tells you that that is enough, that is all you can do. And it wasn't until I woke up the next day after spending most of that night sleepless, just trying to grasp what was happening. We didn't even know how many people were killed until later that night into the morning. And so the reality didn't seep in. And when we started coming together with the vigils at these funerals, you felt the power of coming together, that even in the face of this tragedy, that coming together had strength. And so we've been coming together every day since, as a country, as a generation. And I don't feel helpless anymore. I don't feel hopeless. I see the path to ending this epidemic in America. And it breaks my heart that this effort from myself took this tragedy, that I started working harder because of this. I need people to stand up before it happens to them. Parkland is one of the safest cities in America. It was the safest city in Florida for almost a decade. We have virtually no crime here, and this can happen here, and it took 17 lives here. And it can happen everywhere because it is happening everywhere in America, regardless of your zip code or where you come from, what demographic you are, what race, age, sex, whatever. This gun violence is affecting all of us in this country, and it's spreading. And our leadership is making the active choice every day to not step up and do the right thing. And so it's going to be young people that do it. And that's why we've seen so many victories happen, because young people are organizing, educating themselves, and holding this important conversation because it's life or death for us.
Do you feel, I mean, it's coming up to a year on, of course, since that day, and since all of this started, and since you guys began mobilising across America as well. Do you ever have times where you just feel remarkably frustrated that you perhaps haven't solved what you would see as the problem yet?
Yeah, we don't allow ourselves to get frustrated with that, because the gun lobby in America has had longer than I've been on this earth to prepare for this fight with us. And the fact that we are getting wins, the fact that we are passing laws at the state level, the fact that we are having this federal debate to this day, the fact that you are even interviewing me right now to talk about a shooting that happened almost a year ago is remarkable in regards to American dynamics, because we have had in America over 350 mass shootings last year, 350 mass shootings. But the difference between those 350 and the one that happened in Parkland is because most of those mass shootings happen in low socioeconomic areas. A lot of those mass shootings happen in communities of color. But Parkland, in a predominantly white community, affluent community, was able to capture the nation because the people in power and the people who run these networks saw themselves in these young people that were speaking out. And we, as young organizers, as people who took this argument to the highest level, made it our duty to just organize and mobilize and build out these coalitions. And so I've been to 41 states in America in the last 11 months, and I have seen this country. And I'm not frustrated. I'm incredibly hopeful, because the fact that we were able to pass 70 laws at the state level, the fact that we know for a fact that these laws are saving lives, that the red flag law in Florida has already been acted over 400 times. That the red flag law, just so you know, allows for violent individuals, proven violent individuals, people who are planning or conspiring to commit some form of violence, or if someone feels threatened, they're able to file a report and with due process disarm that person and remove their guns from their household. And that stopped a potential mass shooting at the University of Central Florida. It has been enacted over 400 times. Could you imagine that? Over 400 times someone felt threatened enough by someone that they could create a coherent report, and that person was armed and dangerous, and they were able to actively de-escalate that situation and figure out what's actually going on here. So when we talk about frustration, that's not the right word. It's determination. It's anger at the fact that it took this long. But I understand that it's now or never, because every day more people are affected by this issue. And it will affect someone that isn't standing up today that will stand up tomorrow.
What does 2019 look like for you, Matt, and for the March for Our Lives movement? Like last year, there was a kind of, I guess, quite a clear focal point, and that was the midterms in November. Of course, presidential election comes up next year in 2020. So what's at the start of the year, kind of halfway through January here, what does the rest of the year, what does the map of the rest of 2019 look like for the movement? What do you want to do?
I would love to tell you the really cool things that we have planned right now, but while we're still cooking them up, I can't give you too many details.
Oh, go on,
but
surely.
I can I can promise you that this year is all about educating and organizing the young people of this nation and continuing this conversation with my peers, with the people who are coming after me, and the people who are older than me, willing to open their minds to these new ideas, to these bold new ideas. And so we have hosted hundreds of town halls around the country with elected officials, with young people. We're going to continue doing that around this country. I'm going to continue. Hopefully I can check all 50 states off in this year.
That would be amazing. That would be very impressive.
And just continue to make America meet America. When we were on the Road to Change tour this summer, it was 63 straight days on a bus. And we would take kids from Madison, Wisconsin to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which isn't that far from each other. And they would have no idea the issues that they were dealing with in this neighboring city, right? In this place, in the same state. They're ruled by the same, they're governed by the same people, and yet they were unfamiliar with the issues that was taking human life in that community, right? And so that's really what we just have to continue to do in 2019, is not allow this issue to be masked by statistics and dehumanize the victims of this. Because 40,000 people die every year from gun violence in America, 105 every day. Every day, 15 of them children. And if we're not talking about that, if we're not continuing this conversation through 2019, through 2020, and we ensure that the next president of the United States is a morally just person that can see this issue not as an issue of the left or the right, of Democrats or Republicans, but of moral justice, of doing the right thing and actually standing up for our lives, then I would have spent my 2019 correctly.
Wow. It's a powerful thing, and I think what's I suppose interesting to reflect on from the UK is that actually there is presumably still quite a bit of resistance actually to you guys and your movement, and that surely will continue through 2019 as well.
Let me tell you, the resistance, this issue is not a polarizing issue in America. That is one of the best lies that the gun lobby tells us. They try to make it sound like this is a third rail in politics. Standing up against the gun lobby is a winning issue. That is why this election in 2018 went the way that it did. The number one indicator that a young person was going to vote was whether or not they cared about stopping gun violence. And so what the gun lobby has said for so long, and the National Rifle Association and these politicians that are okay taking money over protecting our lives, they like to say that this is a liberal issue. They try to label it. They try to use these predefined words that they understand that their base already sees as a negative in order to manipulate us to vote against our best interests. And so we're not going to allow that to stop us, because I've been all around this country and I've talked to thousands of gun owners. I've talked to people who are NRA members. I've talked to people who show up to our events with AR-15s meant to intimidate us, and they agree with our policy. They will fight for us now. And that is what is changing, because the people in Congress, the Senate Majority Leader, and the President need to know that we will not stop until we see these policies enacted, because our lives are on the line every single day. And so for the people in the UK that see that we have resistance, judge us by our enemies. Judge us by the people who are actively trying to stop us, the people like Wayne LaPierre who take $5 million every year working at a quote-unquote nonprofit, or the President of the United States who took $30 million from the National Rifle Association, spoke at their events, and has no idea what he's talking about in regards to gun policy. He promised to enact different policies that we are fighting for, then took 2 meetings with the NRA and said, you know what, I'm not going to support background checks that 97% of Americans want. Can you just think about that number? 97% of Americans want universal background checks. The bill that was introduced, H.R. 8, that we have been instrumental in bringing to the House floor with the new Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. This bill is called the bipartisan background check bill because 97% of Americans want universal background checks. We can't agree on anything at that rate. 97%. 12% of Americans think that chocolate milk comes from black cows. Like, do you understand that, like, 97% of Americans want universal background checks? Apple pie polls less than universal background checks. Puppies poll less than universal background checks. And the fact that this isn't passing is an active choice by the Senate leadership, by the GOP Senate leadership every single day makes the choice to not protect us. And we're sick and tired of that. And so we're not done. And we're going to make this a moral issue because the more partisan it gets, the more this becomes part of the normal politics, the more they just use it as a piece in their game. And this game is killing us.
Matt, it's amazing speaking to you. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. And
thank you.
I mean, it's powerful stuff, isn't it? Gee whiz, you're very, very good at putting the arguments across and stuff. It's really nice to speak to you.
I just want young people everywhere to know their power because I'm 21 and I'm the elder in this, right? I'm the oldest person doing this work. And we need young people every single day on the tour. A 16-year-old, a 15-year-old would stand up and they'd say, I can't vote. What can I do?
Matt Deitsch there, who is now the chief strategist at March for Our Lives, that movement that swept across America last year, and they're looking to continue that momentum this year as well. Right, lots coming up in the next little while on Up All Night. After 2 o'clock is the US Sports Show. Baseball, basketball, football, hockey.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And coming up in the next couple of minutes as well, our look back on some of the biggest internet moments of recent times, featuring a cast of very, very cool people. Right now, though, it's 1:30, time for the news with Anna Hodges.
The Duke of Edinburgh is recovering after his car overturned in an accident. Prince Philip, who's 97, was driving himself and wasn't hurt. 2 women in another car involved had a medical treatment but have been discharged from hospital. Pharmacists are warning about the shortage of common drugs, including blood pressure pills and antidepressants. The National Pharmacy Association says a long-standing problem is being made worse by Brexit stockpiling. Theresa May has met party leaders and senior MPs at Downing Street as she tries to break the deadlock at Westminster caused by Brexit. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has dismissed the cross-party talks as a stunt and insists he won't take part unless no deal is ruled out. Union leaders are warning of a potential energy crisis following the scrapping of plans for a new nuclear power plant in Anglesey. Hitachi, who's behind the project, says it can't reach an agreement over funding. Now with the latest from the Australian Open, here's David Law.
Well, we have tennis just 7 hours after we had tennis last night when we had a 3 a.m. plus finish. We're back at the moment under the lights and the roof because it's been raining with Ash Barty, the local hope, 15th seed here, who's won the first set 7-5 against Maria Sakkari of Greece and leads 4-1 in the second. Another Greek player, Stefanos Tsitsipas, is level up at 1-set-all with Nicholas Basilashvili. And later today we have Roger Federer in action against Taylor Fritz. A cracking match in prospect between Maria Sharapova and Caroline Wozniacki, 2 former champions. And then Rafael Nadal is in the evening session. Tennis breakfast from 6 a.m. On BBC Radio 5 Live Sports Extra. With the rest of the day's sport, here's Nick Hatton.
The West Ham manager Manuel Pellegrini says the club don't want to sell Marko Arnautovic, but the forward can move to China if they get a good deal. The club says not for sale, but Arnautovic's brother and agent says he wants to move. The Hammers have received a £35 million bid from an unnamed Chinese side.
Well, when you have so high offer, everyone wants to leave, but he has a contract here, so we know what happened about that in the next days. Well, of course, everyone is seeing about his future. He knows which is the best option for him, and now we will see what happens between the clubs.
Elsewhere, Huddersfield Town have parted company with their sporting director Olaf Rebbe 3 days after head coach David Wagner left his job. The club say the parting of ways has been agreed as the best for everyone concerned. Liverpool defender Andy Robertson has signed a new contract that will keep him at Anfield until the summer of 2024. Ding Junhui will face Ronnie O'Sullivan in the semi-final of the UK Masters snooker. It's after coming from 5-4 down to win a final frame decider against Luca Brecel. Brecel looked set to win before missing a red to the middle pocket, but Ding, though, backed himself to come through.
I believe in myself doing good in deciders. It's not about the decider who win it. It's about who's want to win it. He got a brilliant chance to win it, but he missed in middle pockets, and it's just unbelievable until I have the last chance to put that long ones, and I think game will be finished.
England have called up Mark Wood to their squad for the 3 tests in the West Indies after fellow pace bowler Ollie Stone was ruled out. Stone has a stress fracture of the back and will return home today, while Wood, who is set to be part of the limited overs match in the Caribbean, is expected to arrive over the weekend. Meanwhile, Johnny Bairstow made 98 on the opening day of England's final warm-up game in Barbados against the West Indies President's 11.
It's naturally nice to get to 3 figures, but to be quite honest with you, these warm-up games are about spending time in the middle, getting your movements going, getting a rhythm to your batting out there, and if you can spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours out there, then that's all that the guys are looking for, to get that rhythm.
And in the NBA, the Washington Wizards beat New York Knicks by 101 points to 100. That was at the O2 Arena in London. That's the latest from BBC Sport.
Thanks very much for the news, Anna.
No problem at all.
Thanks very much for the news, Nick. Sport, I should... Oh, no, never mind. Forget that. Right, so thanks very much for your text. 85058's the number if you want to tell us why you're up and about. Rachel says, I go to bed every night with Radio 5 Live, have done for years. Worst things to go to bed with, isn't there? Lee is from Lee and lives in Manchester. He's up because...
From Lee.
Yeah, I know.
I love
Couldn't
that.
make it up, could you? He got called out to Manchester City Centre to look at a problem on a big access control system in an office block. And he didn't fix it, he says.
Oh.
I don't know what that means, but that's fine. David Duncan's listening in Aberdeen on the night shift. He's asked us to play Johnny Cash.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
We're not going to do that. Sorry, David. Wrong station. Okay, let's say hello to our guests. Joining us for this special look back at the year on the internet in 2018. It's not too big a task, surely. Josh Denzel, big star of Love Island in 2018, of course. Sarah Manavis, who writes all kinds of brilliant things for the New Statesman on what's going on online. And Nikki and Sammy as well, the YouTube sensations. Hello, everyone.
Hi, thanks for having us.
No, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in. It's been a big year for the internet in 2018, is it not, Sarah?
Yes, it has. It's been the home of a lot of great things, a lot of horrendous things, but it's been a big year.
That's true. Well, we're going to look back at some of the biggest moments of the last year. But first, I think what we need to do is we need to get to know everybody that's here. I'm Calum. Hello. I don't have anything particularly exciting to say. Josh, I'm going to start with you.
How sick of that theme tune are you at this point?
I didn't actually hear it that much. I've not watched any of it back. So yeah, when you're actually in the villa, you don't hear the kind of theme tune. It's just silence as then Caroline's like heels clip. Just one of your mates is getting booted out of the villa. Thanks, Caroline.
Love Island was what, like 6-7 months ago now?
Yeah.
Does it seem like a fond, close memory, or a very like distant, I'm so glad that's over kind of memory?
Do you know what, bits of both. Like I sometimes try and remember the specific times back to Love Island in the villa, and like it seems so blurry, like it seems so long ago, because so much has happened since, and so much happens in there that you end up like you just forget a lot of stuff, and then it takes like someone to tag you in like a meme or tag you in a GIF, and you're like, that did happen.
Yeah. I tell you who hasn't forgotten a lot of stuff about Love Island is Sarah, who sat right next to you.
Big fan.
Well,
yes, as I was saying, I voted for Josh and Kaz.
Come on.
The proof is on Twitter. And when I started at the New Statesman, it was in the middle of Love Island, and my editors absolutely despised me because I think I wrote about 5 pieces in the space of 3 or 4 weeks and just shoehorning it into every single day.
Solid content.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said.
So you voted for Josh to win, Sarah?
Yes, I did.
That didn't work out quite as you hoped.
No, it was quite a big disproportionate kind of push, wasn't it?
But do you know what? I from about the first week, everyone knew that Jack and Danny was going to win.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
was there that vibe in the villa?
Yeah. But I don't think anyone. The weird thing is that it's not like you win Big Brother or you win. No one gives. You know what I mean? No one cares if you win Love Island, because by that point you're probably quite happy in a relationship. You've spent 9 weeks with your pals. Like you kind of want to just go home and chill.
Yeah.
Like it's irrelevant. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh cool, yeah. It's like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You get £1 million. Like 50 grand's a load of money.
Yeah, of course.
Then you split it between you and your missus. You probably got a nice holiday. You might put a deposit on a house. Cool.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of stuff that happens after that that's more beneficial for you. I think both financially.
Did you go in with that motivation in mind? Do you think that actually, because based
to
on
win?
to win, but also actually regardless of who wins, is probably going to work out all right when you get out of the villa. Because 2017 was massive, and everybody from there became a huge star. All kinds of deals rolling in, I'm sure. Like, is that kind of at the back of your mind that actually, however this goes, it's probably going to be fine?
Yeah, I think you always say, it's not like I went in there, I've openly admit that I went in there double sceptical about whether, they could find me a real life, human girlfriend.
As opposed to a non-human girlfriend.
I was thinking, what, it's a very small percentage chance, but I might as well take, what's the upside and what's the downside? Right, there's no real downside unless there's about 1 billion skeletons in your closet. I thought I'd be okay. So, you go in there and you go, let's see what happens. And I think that after about 3.5 weeks, I was like, I'm probably I was right when I started. Yeah. And then after Kaz came in, I was like, oh, yeah, this is taking a bit of a left turn here.
Well, let's come to that in a sec, because I actually do just want to play you this.
Georgia, you have decided to stay coupled up with Josh.
This was a big moment.
If Josh walks in with a new girl, you're single. If he walks in alone, he's all yours.
This is when I still liked Georgia.
Wow.
I'm feeling a bit sick.
I'm missing it in my head right now.
I was like, I didn't breathe.
I had time for Georgia here.
Yeah.
The turning around, then turning back, and then her being like, okay, I'm ready.
See, when I found that, Josh, I was sitting in the office here, and honestly, my hand was over my mouth. I was watching it back, and I was like, oh, my days. I mean, it's a TV producer's dream, I guess.
Gold. Did you know that was how it was going to come across? When it all happened?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be a leper. Like, I thought genuinely.
Yeah.
But the thing is, by that point, I was ready to take a risk and just go, right, listen, if it don't work out and I go home, I've had a good bat, you know what I mean? I've had a decent innings, right, let me just slide off as the nation's most hated man. And just go and live in Argentina or something. It was, I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't realise it was going to be quite that bad, because I assumed, what you don't see in the villa is, the other 80% of the time when, things aren't really necessarily going that well, or one person's maybe more into it than the other person, or two people are just kind of playing a little game.
Yeah.
Well, that point was what I wanted to ask you about, was the one person being more into it than the other person, because it very much seemed like on your side it was like a hey, this is kind of fun for now kind of thing with Georgia, and then whereas I think she seemed, at least she played up to being ultra invested.
Yeah, but she played up to seeing a lot of things. But no, for me anyway, it's not like I was like, it's Love Island, right? There's we start off with 8 people, 7 people, and then more people come in. The whole point of Love Island is to find someone who's kind of the most compatible person for you. How many people, are still with their first boyfriend or girlfriend? And how many people after 13 days are getting absolute pelters for maybe seeing another girl? It's crazy, right? But because they're public, own a little piece of your relationship. They've seen it grow.
They owned it all.
You start, they owned it all. They still do, kind of it was a bit deep, and I don't think that. I think maybe we were both invested in the same amount, but she's a better actress than me.
I've got a question. Did it actually feel like, how many weeks were you in there? 9?
It was, I was in there, the show's 8 weeks, I was in there for 7 weeks and a day.
Did it feel that long?
Felt like 40 years.
Did it actually?
It does get to the point with shows like that, though, where I'm sitting watching, I'm like, I really want to go for a drink with that person, that person, that person. Yeah. I'm not that person. Do you know what I mean?
Tell me that person that you don't want to go for a drink with.
Absolutely not. But I'll see you in the pub next time I'm in London.
All right,
and I won't see Georgia. Right, so that's a joke. I love Georgia. Georgia's great. Everyone's brilliant.
That's some hot tea.
Right.
Everyone's brilliant.
Right, let's meet some of the others, some of you guys that are with us. Now, Sarah, you're obviously mostly a writer, and so I struggle to find any fun audio, like I've just done with Josh, to play you. So what I'm going to do is...
fun, was it?
Well, it's fun for me. So I'm just going to read through some of your recent articles that you've done for The New Statesman, and then get you to tell a bit of a story, if that's okay.
All of my articles for The New Statesman, just a warning, are just the worst things happening on the internet, and me just having to spend weeks on them.
Tumblr's porn ban is another case of social media sites misunderstanding their users. That's quite interesting. The pineapple trend is dead. Long live the banana.
Wow.
I think I talked about that in Love Island, didn't we? Twitter's ignorance of hate speech in India highlights a wider social media problem, and the rise of the porn meme are some of your recent bits of work. So there we go, it's just to get to know Sarah. But also, I need to be honest, because Sarah and I have known each other for a few years now. And I'm very pleased to say, Sarah, that actually you and your boyfriend are the one couple in my life that I have match made that actually worked.
Yeah, so about nearly 3 years ago now, I randomly messaged Calum about a guy I followed on Twitter who was a journalist, saying I was sitting in bed lusting after this guy while eating a salad.
Straight to the point.
And Calum thankfully sent him a screenshot of that message.
Nice.
And then we ended up going for a drink, and now we're still together. And Calum, I don't even think I've seen you since that happened.
I don't think either. We've been in touch, but I remember where I was when I was in a hotel in Newcastle for work.
That's not matchmaking. That's quite savage.
Yeah.
That's
it worked out. To be fair, I have to be. We have a dog and everything now, so he's the creator of a family.
I just, the direct approach works best. I think, and Josh, maybe you can testify to this. There's so many games when it comes to love and people coupling up. So I was like, do you know what? She likes him. Let's see what happens.
I'm all down for the shortest possible.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there we are, and they're still together. So it paid off.
It worked.
So if anybody's looking for a boyfriend or girlfriend, and it's somebody I know, let me know.
Send Calum the most disgusting message you can think of at a given moment, and he'll send it to them, and I'm sure it'll work out.
Just bear in mind the screenshot warning. That's the right. Let's say hi to Nikki and Sammy. Hi, Nikki and Sammy.
Hi.
And thankfully, you have lots of content online for me to choose from.
Yes, we're twins. No, we didn't prank our teachers at school. And yes, we don't like each other that much. Yes, we do share a girlfriend.
Right, so let's start with the last point.
You didn't
let
that finish.
No, that's out of context, Calum.
Wow. That was a really rubbish trailer that we made 2 months ago, which is swiftly getting deleted from YouTube.
Oh, really? I quite enjoyed it.
Oh, God.
I did watch the rest of it, and you're right, it is out of context. Do you want to explain it?
It stems from twins get asked ridiculous questions. Maybe 2019 can be the year that twins get asking stupid questions. But I'm talking can your girlfriend tell you apart? Pretty sure she can. Can you read each other's minds? Questions like that.
No.
I just wish I had a cheat sheet I could pull out.
No.
We've met, it's like a thing when we meet twins. In our year group at school, there are 8 sets of twins.
Oh my God.
I don't know what was in the water in Essex, but it was getting round.
That's mad.
And none of us exhibited any extra sensory behaviour whatsoever. So I'm kind of disappointed, and we really didn't buck a trend. I was hoping for a Matilda moment of knocking over some water and be like, I've got a powerful mind. But that hasn't happened yet, so probably won't.
But now I have a quiz for you. Okay.
Oh, God.
And just for Nikki and Sammy. So I had a little look back.
Okay,
the rest of you can chill. You can all chill. Yeah, your quiz is coming later. No, so I had a little look back on your YouTube channel. Now this is one of the videos I found, right? And I just want to see if you know what it is.
Sometimes you need to lube the pan, otherwise you're going to end up with a hot mess.
I know exactly what. One of the oldest videos on our channel. That was cooking something. Valentine's pancake. Or something like that. That's Father's Day cake. Or
there you go. It's the Father's Day cake. Yeah, well done. 10 points.
Father's Day.
It was the fact you hadn't had any other gift. Was that not the idea that you?
Oh yeah, you know better than I do.
Yeah?
That's right. I've repressed it. That was the narrative.
Do you know what's interesting though? Is that's the oldest video on your channel, right? But here's what you say about it.
Hello, welcome to our second video.
What was the first video?
Move on to the next question. No, it was. We did this thing 5 years ago, fresh out of uni. It's called the Tin Can Challenge.
Okay.
And it consisted of a Russian roulette with
gross tin cans.
Oh my God.
Well, it's not even some of it's not even human food.
Dog food.
I'm a vegetarian now. Maybe that's something to do with it. I had to eat cat food for one part of it, and that video, we lost the footage. I ate cat food and we lost the footage. I was like, I've done that for no reason.
Got a new laptop after that.
Yeah.
What made you guys actually say this is too horrific to have on my YouTube channel, that we need to get rid of it?
I think it's just 5 years on. I was like, I did that. Yeah. That's on the internet forever. No, I can get rid of it. And
but you were
get rid of it.
Tin cans, no. Lube cake, yes.
Yes. Isn't that everyone?
Well,
what's the problem? I'm confused.
Nice. Well, thank you all for being here. It's great to have you all in. So thanks very much. Now, the idea over the next little while is that we look back at some of the kind of biggest moments online, the moments that have perhaps defined conversation or that stick out in people's memories. And actually, as I was kind of looking back on some of these moments, a lot of them you might forget, but actually they were quite a big deal at the time. And I think a good place to start is with this.
What's this?
Yeah, it's rewind time.
God.
Right.
The most disliked video on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, and it's come right at the end of 2018.
God.
So basically, what I have sold this to the big BBC bosses as is, you know how Rewind on YouTube is the most disliked video in history.
Yes. Yeah.
What we're going to do is a radio version that everyone loves.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing right now.
That's nice and low pressure for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. But let's start with Rewind, Nikki and Sammy. Like the whole concept of it is to pick out the best bits of YouTube from the last year, or at least that's what everybody thought until this year, right?
Yeah, well, it was the weird quasi-political message in the middle, like, we've addressed all these problems, and we were in one 4 years ago, and they shoot for a whole day, and then don't include the footage, or they include like 10 seconds of it. It was, I get what they're trying to do, but 1 minute they want James Corden carpools, and then they want Will Smith.
It's quite funny if you watch the YouTube rewinds from the last few years, you can see the change in the mentality. So YouTube really focused on having like TV presenters and news anchors and mainstream people on their rewind. I mean, they've got Will Smith this year, which he's Will Smith, he's a legend. But if you look, the screen time that the presenters and stuff had this time around was minimal, because last year everyone was like, you've got YouTubers on your platform that get more views than half of these people do on their programs. I think James Corden's great, but he's still putting them on a pedestal, and it's like they've got a real hard challenge on their hand. It's like, how do you recap the last year but make everyone happy about it? And I don't think you can. I do agree there was a really weird political message halfway through that kind of felt like it was just sandwiched in. I think you're setting yourself up for a fall. I don't think you can make a rewind that's going to please everyone.
The thing about YouTube Rewind, like, let's say in like 2010, was like, it was kind of this like wholesome, like, oh, look at some memes that happened. Yeah. Oh, look, it's the kid president. Or like, it was just like the kind of like really like one hit wonder kind of YouTube, which is really nice. And that's kind of what YouTube used to be. And now it's like, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like, it's just like the worst people in the world, like PewDiePie and JonTron and the Paul brothers. Sorry if anybody here is a Paul brother fan.
You got me.
Yeah. But yeah, and it's like, it's truly like people like that I would actually go as far to say are like a detriment to society. And those are actually, like, if you were going to do a genuine YouTube rewind, those are actually the people that would be like the now kid presidents and the memes and stuff like that. So having YouTube be like this weird sanitized, like, oh, it's just beauty bloggers and like, look how we're changing the world.
Don't
like,
look any deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And then having like randomly rogue Will Smith as though that's just going to like gloss over everything, or as if it makes any sense at all.
Is it indicative though? Because there has been other controversy with YouTube, and some of it's quite technical, changing algorithms and changing the way videos appear in people's feeds and stuff. Is it kind of an indicative thing of YouTube moving away from people like you guys, frankly, Nikki and Sammy, and others that upload brilliant content every single day, and actually YouTube kind of taking a far more zoomed out, we're a massive business kind of view of the whole thing?
I think in reality, if vloggers stopped uploading, I think there's something like 360 hours of, this is a while ago, 360 hours of content uploaded a minute or something. It's ridiculous. So if YouTubers who work hard on their content regardless were taken away, YouTube's bottom line is really not going to take a hit. They wouldn't have any representation of like, because like YouTubers are like the Mickey Mouse of Disney. It's like, we're Disney, but look, here's Mickey Mouse, he's the face of us. Whereas YouTube don't have that. So they, for a long time, had PewDiePie, which is, we'll talk about him a different time. But yeah, it's, I think their focus was like, we can have this great content that people enjoy, and like, not the BBC, but, big news networks in America on our platform, people will enjoy it, and that's where their priority was for a long time. And I think they've realised that the creators are the face of them for a large part of their audience. So I don't know. I think they've changed their priority slightly.
If you're watching YouTube, you could start on like a beauty blogger. You could watch like somebody doing their makeup, and if you just let the video play, even if you aren't watching like conspiracy theory videos, you just end up like eventually hitting like a Jordan Peterson, like, here's why I have an all beef diet video. Like, it's just like no matter what, the algorithm is like so rigged at the moment. I don't think it's rigged necessarily because YouTube is trying to make it always end up on a Ben Shapiro conspiracy video, but I think that there is a problem where no matter what you're watching, there's enough terrible stuff out there that's like really not verifiable that you'll eventually end up on.
From our side of things as well, for being permanent creators on the platform for the past 5 years, I'm happy to like corroborate everything you've just said. There's absolutely no clarity. If they want to change something, they'll change it, and they don't need to tell us. And these are a lot of small businesses and a lot of people running their lives on these channels, and they just change something like that, and that's it.
They are being more transparent recently, but it feels like it's taken 4 years to get to that point. And there's people, not even just YouTubers as everyone knows them. I use the Body Coach a few times a week, and every day. I use the Body Coach, but like he's made a small empire off of YouTube, and if they change the rules and he loses all his views, that's his business gone. So I think there needs to be some accountability, and I don't know how that's to be done. I'm not a business person. They're slightly taking note now, but it's taken a long time to get to this point.
Yeah, it's amazing how YouTube makes these characters as well, isn't it? Jordan Peterson, we had on BBC Radio 5 Live a few weeks ago. I interviewed Ben Shapiro in the run-up to the US presidential election.
Oh, wow, did you? How was that?
Well, I mean, it was a couple of years ago. It was just after he'd quit Breitbart. It was really interesting. It was really interesting. And this is the thing, he was a very reasonable man and he made some very reasonable points. And to be fair, the interview was mostly about like Breitbart and where it was going right and wrong and that kind of thing. But it's just amazing how these people kind of emerge out of this platform. And as you guys were hinting at there, that, you know, they bypass us as like the BBC, and they bypass traditional people because they just simply do not need us, and they can take a message straight to people.
I've been recently comparing YouTube to global warming a lot, where I'm like, we're already too far in to like it being terrible that we're like, oh, we're all going to die in 50 years. But like, maybe if we try to fix it now, it could be like 60 years. Like, and so you're like, oh, okay, I guess that's something. But I think that's it, is like the Jordan Petersons, the Ben Shapiros, those kinds of people, the Alex Joneses of the world, who is obviously not on YouTube anymore, RIP. But like, they've learned now how to say things where they say something that if you actually were to write it down, you're like, oh my God, that's insane.
We'll have more from Josh and Sarah and Nikki and Sammy a little bit later on in the programme as well. It was just interesting chat. They're just interesting people with a lot of influence and a lot of insight actually into how things that we kind of see on the internet, what actually happens behind the scenes, including some great stories from Josh on what he has to do in order to post a good Instagram. It's quite spectacular. So we'll catch up a little bit on that later. Right, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about something. And I'll be honest with you, what I've been trying to do is find a good way to kind of get into this. And this is the best I can do. Just what I could do at short notice, because we haven't talked about Brexit yet, so let's do it. Plenty of the papers are picking up on Brexit this morning. Here's what the headline in the Times is. Bitter. Stop Brexit and stay with us, Germany asks Britain. The Telegraph says May faces revolt against no deal. It suggests that she's facing mass resignations unless she allows her cabinet ministers to try and stop a no-deal Brexit. Well, I've been speaking to Paul Gallagher of the I newspaper about how they're covering the turmoil in Westminster.
This time it's Labour's turn to be torn over Brexit plans, specifically Theresa May's so-called Plan B. Senior Labour MPs in open conflict with their leader, Jeremy Corbyn, last night as they refused to join his boycott of cross-party talks on the Brexit crisis. Those tensions within the party over EU withdrawal exposed as the Prime Minister and senior ministers began meeting MPs of all parties in an effort to reach some kind of consensus following the crushing defeat for her Brexit plans. Now, Mr Corbyn has attacked the talks as a stunt, and he's insisted he will not meet Mrs May until she categorically rules out a no-deal departure from the EU. And he called on Labour MPs to follow his lead, sending every single one of them an email. However, certain senior members of his own party seem to either ignore that or not quite get it in time. Three senior figures, Hilary Benn, Yvette Cooper, both chairs of select committees, and Stephen Kinnock. They broke with Jeremy Corbyn by joining these talks with ministers at the Cabinet Office. Mr Benn himself urging the Prime Minister to demonstrate a spirit of compromise. And he was asked if Jeremy Corbyn should meet Theresa May. He replied, "That is a decision for Jeremy to take. He's demonstrating that it's not just the Prime Minister who can be stubborn." Now, I think he actually meant that as something of a compliment, because he did go on to say there is a step she can take, by meaning to take the no deal off the table. And Jeremy Corbyn, in Hilary Benn's words, quite right to say to her, as all of us have, you must take no deal off the table. And Yvette Cooper, chair of the Commons Home Affairs Committee, she said the most important thing now is that the government actually listens, and it doesn't just think that the defeat that was that huge can simply be dismissed. Jeremy Corbyn himself, he was at Hastings yesterday. He defended his decision not to enter these talks with the PM to try and solve the Brexit crisis. As I say, he went on to describe it as a stunt and not a serious attempt to engage with the new reality that's needed, he told party activists. Lots of pictures in the eye, of course, of various members of the DUP, of the European Research Group, of the Tory party, and indeed Plaid Cymru and others going into the Cabinet Office to continue these talks, but one key person, the leader of the opposition, still refusing to do so himself.
And the Prime Minister is facing a bit of a hard time as well, shock, but from her own ministers as well at the moment.
That's right. They've warned her that she faces mass resignations if she prevents them from allowing Parliament to wrest control of Brexit. So she's very much got her own troubles. They continue. Several cabinet members will refuse to vote against a backbench amendment due to be tabled next week. That will hand power to MPs to set the terms on Brexit. That's according to senior Tories behind the move. And this all comes after a leaked recording of the Chancellor Philip Hammond's phone calls with business leaders revealed he believed the bill would gain the support of the Chamber and remove the threat of a no-deal Brexit. Now, the former minister, Nick Bowles, he's the person who put forward the amendment. He said more middle-ranking ministers were threatening to resign if they were ordered to vote against the amendment. He said a large single-digit number of cabinet ministers have told me they will not vote against the amendment. A larger number of up to 20 ministers outside cabinet say they will resign if they are ordered to vote against the amendment. And if anything, Nick Bowles says this is gathering greater momentum across the House. Now, this Bowles amendment, it's been signed by Labour MPs, Yvette Cooper again, Liz Kendall, and the Lib Dems' Norman Baker, former health minister, and that will temporarily suspend the standing orders in the House. These standing orders give the government control over the parliamentary timetable, enabling it to command what legislation goes through the House. And by suspending that for a period, backbench MPs will be able to table their own laws if they command a majority. In this case, Mr. Bowles' European Union Withdrawal No. 2 bill. And if passed, the bill will instruct the Prime Minister to try and forge a deal that could command a majority in the Commons within a few weeks, and if that fails, senior parliamentarians will attempt to create their own deal, and there are consequences, of course, if that should fail itself. So it goes on for a few more days yet,
and probably a lot longer after that as well. This is BBC Radio 5 Live. Lots coming up after 2. We're going to spend some time looking at US sport.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And then a little bit later on as well, the second part of our look back on some of the biggest moments on the internet. Plus, before the end of the programme, we've got a bit of a quiz to see if you're awake or not. Liam Smedley's here with the news. It's 2 o'clock.
And the main news, Prince Philip is unhurt following a car accident.
In sport, Pellegrini says Arnautovic can leave West Ham if the price is right.
Buckingham Palace says the Duke of Edinburgh is unhurt following a car accident near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. Prince Philip, who's 97, was driving a Land Rover that ended up on its side yesterday afternoon. 2 people in another car were treated for minor injuries. Our royal correspondent is Nicholas Witchell.
No elderly person likes the idea of having their independence constrained, but I would imagine that the Duke and the Queen must be just pondering the sort of message that this sends in terms of self-discipline, responsibility, common sense, and wondering whether it isn't time to let the policeman and the chauffeur do the driving and quite literally to take a back seat.
A cabinet source is suggesting that the Commons Speaker, John Bercow, could be denied a peerage when he retires. The move would break a 230-year tradition that former Commons Speakers are automatically offered a seat in the House of Lords. He's recently been accused of bias by ministers in recent Brexit debates. Meanwhile, the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, has told his MPs not to get involved in cross-party talks with Theresa May over Brexit unless she rules out no deal. The Prime Minister's been meeting other leaders as she prepares to publish a new plan on Monday after her withdrawal agreement was defeated in the Commons. Here's the former Labour Home Secretary, Lord Blunkett.
In terms of statescraft and diplomacy and understanding of the public, it would have been a good idea if he'd indicated that he was prepared to meet Theresa May, making his position on no deal absolutely clear. But of course, we reach no deal if no agreement is reached within Parliament or if there isn't a second referendum.
A senior negotiator from North Korea has arrived in Washington as speculation mounts about a second summit between Kim Jong-un and President Trump. Kim Yong-chol is believed to be carrying a message to Mr. Trump. A new report says the long-term plan for the NHS in England could be threatened by growing waiting lists and staff shortages. The government published the strategy last week, showing how the extra £20 billion pledged for the health service by 2023 will be spent. Robert White is from the National Audit Office.
There are organisations that are still in deep financial deficit, and we can see poor performance on waiting times. And some of that is a result of vacancies in the health services for doctors and nurses. Those three things need to be brought into balance.
The Department of Health says putting the NHS on a sustainable footing is a key priority in the plan. And Netflix ended 2018 with more than 139 million paid subscribers, adding 8.8 million members in the 3 months to the 31st of December. Executives have put it down to its original content, such as Bird Box. Now let's head over to the Australian Open and David Law.
Well, we're watching Stefanos Tsitsipas, the 14th seed from Greece, of whom much is expected. He's trying to get through to probably face Roger Federer in the next round, serving for the third set to lead 2-1 against Nicolas Basilashvili. He's just been given a time violation, lost his serve altogether, and then been given a code violation for unsportsmanlike conduct. So it's all happening here. The roof is closed because of rain at the moment, and we've got Thomas Burdick as well, 1-all at the moment with Diego Schwartzman. Federer is about to take to the court as well against Taylor Fritz, and then we've got Maria Sharapova against Caroline Wozniacki in a blockbuster clash on the Rod Laver Arena shortly after. Two former champions there. And then it's Nadal in the evening session in Tennis Breakfast from 7 o'clock in the morning on BBC 5 Live Sports Extra. Now with the rest of the day's sport. Here's Nick Hatton.
The West Ham manager Manuel Pellegrini says the club don't want to sell forward Marko Arnautovic, but he can move to China if they get a good deal. The Hammers have received a £35 million bid from an unnamed Chinese side. West Ham say that he's not for sale, but Arnautovic's brother, an agent, says he wants to move. Elsewhere, 3 days after head coach David Wagner left his job, Huddersfield Town have parted company with their sporting director Olaf Rebbe, while Liverpool defender Andy Robertson has signed a new deal to stay at Anfield until at least the summer of 2024. Ding Junhui is through to the semi-finals of the UK Masters snooker. It's after a 6-5 victory over Luca Bracella at Alexandra Palace. He faces Ronnie O'Sullivan in the last 4. And Johnny Bairstow top score with 98 as England made 379 on the first day of their final warm-up game in Barbados.
And the weather, a cold and frosty start for many. Eastern areas will remain dry with spells of increasingly hazy sunshine. Western parts will see increasing cloud, rain and some hill snow spreading slowly east. It's 2:05.
Thanks very much, Liam. Thanks, Nick. Cheers, Nick. Thanks very much.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Right, good. Let's do some US sports chat, shall we? Time for some baseball, some basketball, football, and almost certainly some hockey chat. James Wickham, Jolan Kemp-Walker are here.
Hello.
Good morning. How are you doing, Jolan?
Very good, very good. Yourself,
Hi,
Callum?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, mate. I'm keeping my eyes open. You all right, James?
Oh, I'm coping. Very happy, very happy.
It's nice to see you both.
See, this is a normal time for us US sports fans, because this is when we thrive. This is when we're watching that live sport at this very sociable hour.
This is early, actually. Can we get a coffee?
Yeah. I get that. I remember when I was at uni, the Super Bowl became a massive thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know me
Still
very
is,
well.
actually, Callum.
Of
Yeah,
course,
still
yeah,
quite
I get
Have
that.
you heard about it? It's quite big.
I heard of it once or twice. But I could never get my head around staying up late to watch it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've never done it. But maybe I should. Maybe I should embrace it.
All I'll say is one word of advice. If you're deciding to follow a team in any sport, I would always go East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah. Always go East Coast.
Very good
because if you
advice.
go West Coast, the games are starting at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. Then that's basically getting up early, and no one wants to be doing that at 3 o'clock.
That's a very bad idea. Anyway, shall we crack on with it?
Go for it.
Good, because it's time for the news. Thing is, I get to choose the music every so often on this, and so this applies to something in our news.
This is about 40 years ahead of anything you've ever chosen before.
This is Cardi B featuring Kehlani. I don't know who any of those people are, but let's just go with it.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, the NFL playoffs continued, and it was the end of the road for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Gutted.
Can you believe it? They lost 2014 at New Orleans against the Saints. They are now going to play the Rams on Sunday for a spot in the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, Philip Rivers still won't get that Super Bowl ring. Cardi B featuring Kalani. Ring.
Is that like a call-up? Is that the joke there?
What?
What do you mean by you won't get the Super Bowl ring?
When you win the Super Bowl, you get a ring on their finger.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's a thing in so many US sports. It's bizarre. They do get these incredible rings. Google a Stanley Cup ring or something like that. They are incredible pieces of jewellery.
It's exactly the same in football, actually. Here, this side, if you win the FA Cup, you get a cravat.
I feel like you're making that up.
I might be making that up. Just possibly. Anyway, so the Chargers went down to the Patriots 28-41. So, yes, it means it's Brady versus Mahomes this weekend for the other Super Bowl spot. It's going to be an amazing game. A reminder, the Super Bowl itself takes place in just over a fortnight in Arizona. Jolon, we're going to have a big old NFL chat in a couple of weeks. I would like to do an hour.
Yeah.
I've just told the bosses we're doing an hour.
Okay.
An hour of NFL chat all about the Super Bowl.
Cool.
Okay,
That sounds good.
We can do that.
That sounds good.
So that'll be in what, 2 weeks' time?
Yeah, it'll be about
we
that.
Can do that.
It's
Okay,
not far.
great.
Elsewhere in hockey, another story about concussion. Rick Nash, the former number 1 draft pick and 6-time All-Star, has retired because of, he said it's because of concussion-related symptoms, an injury that has plagued him for so long, and he just couldn't get it. He couldn't get his head sorted and couldn't work out what was wrong with him and why he couldn't get back up to playing speed. And so he's called time on the end of his career. He had 437 career goals, the third highest among active players behind only Alex Ovechkin and Patrick Marleau. He got his latest head injury while playing for the Boston Bruins last year. He was a free agent after he told the teams this year at the start of free agency that he wasn't yet ready to play. Very interesting on that, because the Boston Bruins basically now have got a slot on their roster that they are likely going to fill, and they're going to be looking at the trade deadline, which is coming up on around the 25th of February in the NHL. Some very interesting manoeuvres could be happening up until that date.
The really sad thing is he did all of that off the top of his head.
I know.
And, of course, the NBA was in London tonight. More on that to come, but we want to hear from you. If you were at the O2 this evening, what did you make of it? The Knicks and the Wizards. 85058 at BBC5 Live or up all night at bbc.co.uk.
1 week, can we do like some kind of poll as to which US sport has the best names? So the Knicks and the Wizards, or the Cardinals and there's something like that. Because I reckon out of the 4 main US sports, it'd be interesting to see which people think have the most creative. I think basketball might win.
I'm going for professional rodeo riding.
I don't even know what that is.
Well, do you know what? Believe it or not, we nearly did a story on that this week, but I couldn't find anyone to talk about it, which was annoying. Anyway, right, it's time for this, because the thing is, Jolon, sometimes there are stories which don't fit a specific category. They're not like one particular sport or the other. And as you know, we have jingles on this programme, Callum, which we quite enjoy.
A jingle.
Okay.
The more jingles, the better.
Problem is, they're all jingles that are relating to individual sports.
Okay.
So what do you do when you have a story that just doesn't relate to one individual sport? You pick this. Do you know what that was?
Sorry.
Yeah. Do you know what that was?
Yes, he does over there.
Do you know what it was, Leon?
It's something to do with wrestling, isn't it?
Believe it or not, thanks for giving it away. That was... I
thought you asked. You asked the question.
Well, I like to pick an absolute classic. That was, of course, the WWF Superstars featuring Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh, yeah, that was right at the tip of my tongue.
As a reference for the kids.
I'd just like to go, oh, Canada, as well.
Yeah, well, we'll do that
North
in a
American
bit.
sports show, yeah? Remember that, come on.
This is a story about Americans,
All
not
right,
about your
okay,
crazy
fine.
ice
All
hockey
right,
people.
all right.
Anyway, let's talk about Kyler Murray. He has sent the world of US sports into a spin because he's decided to enter the NFL draft this week. Now, you might not think that's too surprising. Successful college athlete thinks of entering the program, but Kyler Murray is different. He has already signed a pro contract with the Oakland A's. They're a baseball team. I nearly got that wrong.
Martin, he probably can do that as well.
Okay, probably could. He's probably good enough. Martin Gallegos is the Oakland A's beat reporter for the Mercury News and the East Bay Times in San Jose. Martin, hello.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, I'm very well. Thanks so much for coming to talk to us tonight. Just tell us about Kyler Murray. How good is this guy?
Well, it's an athlete that you rarely see in sports these days. He's really a once-in-a-generation type of talent. I mean, you've seen guys like Bo Jackson do football and baseball, but to have a kid like this who is so great in two sports, I mean, it's really rare. So, he's got the world at his feet right now, and everyone's awaiting his decision.
Yeah, I mean, when we say he's good, he's not just good. I mean, this guy's the Heisman Trophy winner, isn't he? I mean, he is top-notch. In whichever sport he wants to go into, he's going to have a multi-million-pound contract on the line. So what exactly is going on with this contract of his? He signed one with the Oakland A's, but is he going to go into football instead?
Right. So when he signed this, when he got drafted by the A's last year, in his contract, it was written that he was still allowed to play college football one more year, and then he would go to the A's. So we all thought that was going to be the case, and all of a sudden, Kyler Murray goes out and just puts up these video game type numbers. He wins the Heisman, and now things have changed. He's really strongly considering entering the NFL draft, and he's got a good chance to go pretty high in the draft. I mean, if you look at mock drafts coming out, I think today he was projected to go like number 13 overall, which would make him a lot of money. And it would be a lot more money than his current MLB deal. So what's going on now is the A's and baseball are trying to make a last-minute effort to kind of maneuver his contract in a way so that he could make a little bit more money than he was originally expected to get. But it's tough right now because it looks like football may be the ultimate option for him. He's loved football since he was a kid. He grew up in Texas where they're just crazy about the sport. Yeah. So he seems to be leaning towards that direction, it seems like.
And just to tell Joel on, I think I'm right in saying, Martin, you can tell me otherwise, I think Kyler is putting up better stats in college this year than Baker Mayfield was last year.
Yeah, he went out and broke a whole bunch of records in quarterback. And you saw what Baker Mayfield did with the Browns this year.
The wonderful Browns.
Yep, and he's a smaller guy too, like Kyler Murray, so that stigma of a small quarterback is kind of going away in football now. You're seeing small guys have a little bit more success.
Martin, has this kind of thing ever happened before? I know that you do have kind of cross athletes or players going between sports. It does happen, changing codes over there. But has this kind of thing ever happened from such a young age to have so much money being on the table for a kid?
No, this is really unprecedented. I mean, you've seen, like you said, two sport athletes like Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, but to be, this young and not even in a one particular league yet. We've never seen anything like this. It's a first of a kind thing, and that's I think why the A's and baseball are having a little bit of trouble in how to handle all of this, because they weren't expecting this to hit them at this point. They were thinking, okay, he's going to be done with football and just immediately go to baseball.
I mean, the A's are very famous, obviously, for Billy Beane and Moneyball. He's still general manager, isn't he? So what's he making of this? I mean, does this fit in with the kind of thing that he tries to do?
It's not really ideal in his process, especially now that trying to give a little bit more money. He's more of a guy who tries to win by spending as little money as possible, just based on the financial constraints that the organization has. So this is a little bit out of his norm. But I think him and the rest of the organization, they realize they drafted him really high, so they obviously love the talent that he has. So they want to do anything they can to get him to choose baseball. But it's a whole different ballgame for them now that Murray's serious about football and he won the Heisman and all that.
Martin, when does he have to make his choice? When is it that he can no longer be kind of both 2 feet in both camps? When does he have to decide?
Yeah, so Oakland A's spring training opens up for position players February 15th. So he's expected to report then, and the NFL scouting combine is 10 days later. So February 25th is when that takes place. That's around the time, really February 15th, when he reports to camp, he's going to have an answer. Is he going to go to the scouting combine? Or is he going to just continue to focus on baseball and just skip all that? My feeling is he's going to go to the scouting combine, and he's going to want to know, what scouts think of him as a professional football player. So, but the deadline for him to decide all that will be February 15th when spring training opens up for the A's.
It's going to be an incredible story. Can't wait to follow it. Thank you so much. Martin Gallegos, who's the Oakland A's beat reporter for the Mercury News and the East Bay Times in San Jose.
There's no doubt in my mind which I would choose. Like, let's take the money off the table.
Yeah,
okay, if it was just about the sports between playing in the NFL or playing baseball, the NFL just because you play 12 games?
Yeah, but think about all the
baseball,
all the concussions.
They play 100.
Yeah, but think about all the concussions, all the medical problems that you're going to have to go through in future years.
He's a quarterback.
Yeah,
he's a quarterback.
Yeah, but I tell you what, for the amount of money you're going to get in baseball, great life. You never have to play in the rain or the snow. Not a bad thing to do.
You don't have to, but you do have to play back-to-back games. You've got to play 1 million games a season. Oh, I don't know. For me, I mean, it's taking the easy option.
You can even be really fat and play baseball. It's great.
So do you guys play any of these US sports?
Oh, all of them. All of them, Callum. Yeah,
every single one.
Every single. In fact, once I've done this, I'm off to throw a few. You know,
what does that mean?
Pitch a few.
Oh, baseball.
Whack a few pucks.
Right.
Do all of that stuff. No, I don't.
You don't?
I played Madden once on the PlayStation.
No, I have dabbled in ice hockey, but got scared.
That's fair. I was just interested.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I played basketball when I was a kid.
Oh, that's cool.
He's doubting our authenticity.
I'm not at all. I'm not at all, because I'm interested in many things in which I do not participate.
Excellent. Well, that's all good.
That there.
Anyway, let's move on, shall we?
They're playing basketball. We love that basketball.
They are indeed. In fact, they were in London yesterday with the Washington Wizards beating the New York Knicks in a thrilling finish at the O2. The Washington Wizards came from 16 points down to beat the New York Knicks 101-100. Now, the BBC Sports' Seth Bennett was there, and I asked him if London opened its arms to basketball.
Absolutely, yeah. They're tried and trusted veterans, aren't they? The London audience for NBA basketball these days. You know, this is the 9th edition of the London game, and once again, the crowds came. The event sold out in less than an hour, and the NBA feels a little bit now like it's putting its comfy slippers on each time they arrive at the O2 Arena. You know, the yellow, great big steel girders that stick out the top of the O2, the sort of nylon top, the plastic top of the O2. It feels very comfortable for the NBA, and they know what they're getting. They know when they come to London, they're going to get the opportunity to show what the NBA does very well. One is produce a great sporting event, but the other side of it is doing all of the community work that they do. And they come and they work with youngsters from the local communities around London. And this year they've worked with kids from across Europe who came to London to take part in these NBA junior camps as well in the build up to the game. And I think they realise as well that, you know, bringing basketball to Europe is a big thing, because of the number of players now from outside North America who are playing in the NBA. You know, I looked around at the media call yesterday, and there were journalists from Slovenia, Slovakia, Czech Republic. You then looked just a little bit further along, the Italians, then there were the Spanish, then there was the Lithuanian crew that were here. Then there was the Germans, of course, who had a healthy interest in all of this, and the Croatians. And all of a sudden you start to get a picture about this global game that basketball has become over the past 25 years, and how Adam Silver, the commissioner, and the rest of the NBA hierarchy really embrace being one of those world leaders where they can bring the opportunity to watch the superstars of their sports within their own continents. And from the players' perspective, there is that little bit of pride of being able to bring their teammates somewhere closer to where they're from, whether, you know, that's them going off and playing games all around the world in the off season, or whether that's coming and taking part in these regular season games. And it was great. The arena was great. The match night offer was great. Just before Christmas, I was in Los Angeles, and I've got to say, I watched the Lakers game on the Friday night, and despite the fact it was the Lakers with LeBron James and everything that goes with that, the actual match night event, the hype in the building, the energy in the building, I would say was greater here in London than it was in LA that night, because maybe sometimes in LA they're a little bit spoiled because they're a bit too cool for school.
It's one of the things that North American sports do so well, that event, and I think that has fueled the success for the NFL and the NBA and all of those teams coming over here to London, and they've really built that event up, and that is what kind of keeps people going. Even if you're not a diehard fan of that sport, you still go there because it's one hell of a night out.
And it was, you've got to say, it was, if not a great game, it was a great finish.
It was a phenomenal finish. Actually, for 3 quarters, it was a pretty rubbish game where the Knicks were in control. And we've got to remember here, what are we talking about? We're talking about 2 teams who are not top echelon, that don't have the current superstars of the game in them. Yes, they're 2 good brands in the Washington Wizards and the New York Knicks, but the New York Knicks are pretty close to being the worst team in the NBA right now. And the Washington Wizards that are better, but not by much. And tonight showed exactly that. It was a 1-point game in the end. But the Knicks at one stage, they were up like by 10 points and looking relatively comfortable, but somehow managed to capitulate in the 4th quarter. They put themselves in all kinds of problems. Offensively, they were making bad decisions. Defensively, they just couldn't contain Bradley Beal, who for 3 quarters of the game was largely absent. He was making poor decisions himself. He was driving with the basketball. He wasn't using his teammates, and the decisions that he's made well through this season as he's really taken on this leadership role with Washington, he wasn't making tonight. And that was so interesting to watch. But when the game came on the line, and it was one of those sort of blink and you miss it moments, the Wizards went from being down by a dozen points to being back on level terms in the space of about a minute and a half. And it was very, very impressive. The game culminated to a couple of possessions, and in the end, Washington, with 0.4 of a second to go, drove hard to the basket. The ball went up. There was what looked like a fantastic defensive play. Trier managed to get his hand up and just knock the ball away. The officials on court ruled it goaltending. That means that you're knocking the ball away from the basket when it's on its downward trajectory. You're not allowed to do that. It went to video replay.
VAR, was it, Seth? Yeah.
It was VAR, but they did it really well. They put it on
no
the
way.
big screen.
It does surprise
Everybody
me.
knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And, neither team was jumping up and down and celebrating at that point. And then it took probably 90 seconds to 2 minutes for the officials to decide they got the right call. Crucially, they put 0.4 of a second back on the clock. And that gave the Knicks the opportunity, having called a timeout, to inbound the ball and have one last opportunity. Unfortunately, they couldn't quite do enough. Emmanuel Mudiay, his shot was just off target, and that meant that Washington won their first ever game over here in London. And they were, I think, delighted with the way that things have gone. They're starting to move in the right direction and believe that they're going to be a team who make the playoffs this year. I think the Knicks, on the other hand, are going to be a team that may well be looking interestedly at the lottery draft and where they maybe are going to be able to pick one of the best players within the collegiate system, if you like, when the draft comes around a little later on in the year.
I was just going to say, Seth, I saw loads of great sports stars there tonight. I mean, we had all the Manchester United people, Arsenal. I saw Jamie Redknapp was there, Seth Bennett. The major sports stars were all there.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Jamie Redknapp too. He wasn't too far away from me. It's really interesting, when you go to these events. And there's kind of 2 things that happen. One of them is you see these sports stars who are ever so slightly out of place, because they're all dressed up to the nines, wearing their various different cool outfits, if you like. And you keep walking past people, and you keep going, is that so-and-so? Or am I being terrible here and not quite able to pick out who these people are? Really interesting just to see other sports stars as well enjoying sport. Because, again, you don't often get to see that, do you? Occasionally at the boxing, you might see a load of sports stars go down and go and watch it on a night out. But it's very rare that you might get 3 or 4 football teams in a room if it's not their Christmas party and they're not all going to watch the darts.
Yeah, I had one of those really weird moments as well, Seth. I went to go and watch an NHL game in Washington, and I was walking along and I walked past Wayne Rooney. and he was in a kind of Washington Capitals hat and all that kind of stuff. And you have that kind of weird double take where it's just strange not seeing him in a football kit on a football field, and it's really strange. I take full responsibility for the New York Knicks' struggles this year because I bought a cap on holiday of theirs. So therefore, my curse of supporting that team means they are in for years of pain, which I apologise to all New York Knicks fans. Seth, thank you ever so much for that, and thank you very much for bringing us a flavour from London and the NBA.
And hold on, because we'll be with you again in a minute.
Yeah, we will. Back to Seth very soon, as James was saying, because the London Games has been overshadowed by a huge political row taking place over the Turkish Knicks centre, Enes Kanter.
Yeah, it's because on Thursday, Turkish prosecutors issued an international arrest warrant for him. They accused him of having links with armed groups said to be behind the 2016 failed coup to depose the president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He denies those claims.
Well, he decided not to travel to London, and speaking for the first time since the arrest warrant was issued, he told Up All Night's Nomia Iqbal he was afraid of being targeted by rogue Erdogan supporters.
I was scared of a crazy Erdogan supporter, a lone wolf, will just do something.
Are you worried that something could happen to you from Erdogan?
Yes, it's not because of the UK, it's because of Erdogan. Because, like I said, he has long arms everywhere, all over Europe. So that's why I did not feel safe.
What's your evidence with that? Huh? What's your evidence that he's got spies everywhere?
Well, actually, I'll give you an example. There is a thing happened, and I think it was around 2012. A Turkish man killed 3 Kurdish in Paris. That was just one evidence. And there's been lots of attacks, and there's been lots of kidnapping happen over there. Actually, there are 100 people being kidnapped in Europe.
So it's Europe as a whole that you're frightened of?
The whole Europe, yes. Well, not just in Europe. I'm talking about if I step outside, well, now I got the red notice under my name for Interpol. If I step outside of America, I'm not feeling safe. I don't feel safe.
Are you worried that you'll be sent back to Turkey?
That, yes. Because now, like I said, they just, it's very funny because everybody was saying, oh, you're just talking about, you don't have no evidence. But when my team was flying to London, the Turkish government just put a red notice under my name with Interpol. So if I went to London and if they put an arrest warrant, and they did eventually, as soon as I left the plane, they would send me back to Turkey.
Well, that's Enes Kanter talking to Up All Night's Nomia Iqbal, and I asked Seth what the NBA leadership was making of all of this.
Well, I think it's a very difficult one. They've been desperately trying to promote the game in London, but there's this huge news story with one of the superstars of these two teams who really should have been playing, but has elected not to because he fears for his life. And that's something that, and he's spoken very strongly against the Turkish government. That's something the NBA has been very supportive of when it's come to its other players speaking about issues within their own communities. This is a little bit more tricky, though, isn't it, with a player coming out and being so outspoken about a whole nation, about a whole government, if you like, and certainly the president of Turkey as well. And I think they felt a little bit uncomfortable. Adam Silver, though, is a smooth operator, the commissioner, and this is what he had to say at his press conference, which was right before the game. In the end, I think he handled it relatively well.
My stance is that I think it's very unfortunate that Enes Kanter is not here with the New York Knicks. I absolutely understand his reasoning why he elected not to come. Certainly, there was never a suggestion from the league that he was not welcome to come on this trip. But, we live in a world where these are significant issues that he is dealing with. And I recognize that for the NBA, that by virtue of the fact that we're a global business, we have to pay a lot of attention to these issues as well. I will say there's nothing more important to me as the commissioner of the league than the security and the safety of our players. So we take very seriously the threats that he's received, even if it's just people on social media. And again, I support Enes as a player in this league, and I support the platform that our players have to speak out on issues that are important to them.
It's really fascinating the way that the NBA leadership deal with social issues and political issues like this. That's Adam Silver, the commissioner of the National Basketball Association. So tonight on the North American Sports Show, we've had international arrest warrants. We've had, interesting stuff, I think, about the NFL draft and the Major League Baseball. And we've had something from the WWF in the 1980s. What more could you possibly want?
We have indeed. And of course, if there's a topic that you fancy hearing us cover, then get in contact with us. Email upallnight@bbc.co.uk. Now, Callum,
hi.
Before we disappear, I think this is quite an exciting opportunity. As you were saying, you're kind of on the edge of getting into the NFL. It might be something you look into in the future.
When you say he's on the edge of getting into the NFL, I mean, what as?
Not
running back?
No, a spectator.
QB. Okay.
A spectator. Very good QB.
Thanks very much.
But we could, if Callum pursues this, we could be in a position to maybe suggest teams for him.
I like it. Okay.
How exciting to be able to pick a new team, Callum. As somebody who supports an awful team, wouldn't it be? It's just such a glorious opportunity to be able to have your choice.
Yeah, I'd be up for that. I think I have vast experience in American football due to my love for Friday Night Lights, the excellent series based on like a.
It's a great book. Great book. I've read the book. I haven't seen the series, but the book's amazing.
Okay, well, the series is equally as brilliant. But I guess, I don't know, I probably invested more in the drama than the American football. But it's enjoyable nonetheless.
Well, there is drama often on the field in American football. It does drama well, and maybe that's something we do. And
I think I enjoy the buzz around the Super Bowl as well. Yeah. That's the thing. It's such an event and an occasion.
That's one of the things we were talking about with Seth, with the NBA coming to London, is that why these North American sports have done so well when they've come over here is they brought the whole event.
Yes,
like they brought the whole thing. Yeah. And that is what has made them so successful over here.
Agreed. Guys, I really enjoyed that. That was cool. Thank very much.
Welcome.
Thanks, James and Jolyn, the US Sports Show stars. Loving your work. Thank you very much. And will you be back next Thursday, I guess? Or, Friday morning, I should say.
Unless we're all sacked in the meantime.
Well, I know that is highly likely at this point, actually. Thanks, guys. This is Five Live. In the next half hour, part 2 of our look back on those big internet moments.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And also, actually, we've got a brand new quiz. I'm not sure how much quiz action's ever happened on Up All Night before, but we're going to give it a shot. Get your mobile phones at the ready. I'm waiting your text. Right now, it's 2:33.
And with the 5 Live News, I'm Liam Smedley. The Duke of Edinburgh is unhurt after he was involved in a car accident yesterday afternoon. Prince Philip, who's 97, was driving a Land Rover that ended up on its side near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. 2 women in the other car needed minor hospital treatment. Pharmacists say they're struggling to get some medicines and are paying vastly increased prices for them. The Royal Pharmaceutical Society says stockpiling for Brexit appears to be a factor. A government source is suggesting that the Commons Speaker could be denied a peerage when he retires. Some ministers are reportedly furious at what they see as John Bercow's bias during debates on Brexit. And President Trump has postponed an overseas trip by the Democratic Speaker of the House. He's told Nancy Pelosi she should stay in Washington to help bring an end to the partial government shutdown. Let's go over to the Australian Open now and David Law.
Well, we're watching Stefanos Tsitsipas, the 14th seed from Greece, who is really making waves in the sport and trying to set up a fourth-round match with Roger Federer at the moment. Tsitsipas is leading 2-1. He withstood a time violation, lost a serve. He had an unsportsmanlike conduct warning, but he still managed to save set point and win the set. So 2-1 for Tsitsipas. Federer, the man he's trying to face in the next round, has just won the first set 6-2 with the minimum of trouble, and Thomas Berdych is level up at 1-1 with Diego Schwartzman. Tennis breakfast from 7 o'clock in the morning with Rafael Nadal in action on BBC Radio 5 Live Sports Extra, and with the rest of the day's sport. Here's Nick Hatton.
The West Ham manager Manuel Pellegrini says the club don't want to sell Marko Arnautovic, but the forward can move to China if they get a good deal. The club says not for sale, but Arnautovic's brother and agent says he wants to move. The Hammers have received a £35 million bid from an unnamed Chinese side.
Well, when you have so high offer, everyone wants to leave, but he has a contract here, so we know what happened about that in the next days. Well, of course, everyone is seeing about his future. He knows which is the best option for him, and now we will see what happens between the clubs.
Elsewhere, Huddersfield Town have parted company with their sporting director Olaf Rebbe 3 days after head coach David Wagner left his job. The club say the parting of ways has been agreed as the best for everyone concerned. Liverpool defender Andy Robertson has signed a new contract that will keep him at Anfield until the summer of 2024. Ding Junhui will face Ronnie O'Sullivan in the semi-final of the UK Masters snooker. It's after coming from 5-4 down to win a final frame decider against Luca Bressel. Bressel looked set to win before missing a red to the middle pocket, but Ding, though, backed himself to come through.
I believe in myself doing good in deciders. It's not about the decider who win it. It's about who's want to win it. He got a brilliant chance to win it, but he missed in the middle pocket. And it's just unbelievable until I have the last chance to put that long ones, and then I think game will be finished.
England have called up Mark Wood to their squad for the 3 tests in the West Indies after fellow pace bowler Ollie Stone was ruled out. Stone has a stress fracture of the back and will return home today, while Wood, who is set to be part of the limited overs match in the Caribbean, is expected to arrive over the weekend. Meanwhile, Johnny Bairstow made 98 on the opening day of England's final warm-up game in Barbados against the West Indies Presidents 11.
It's naturally nice to get to 3 figures, but to be quite honest with you, these warm-up games are about spending time in the middle, getting your movements going, getting a rhythm to your batting out there, and if you can spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours out there, then that's all that the guys are looking for, to get that rhythm.
And in the NBA, the Washington Wizards beat New York Knicks by 101 points to 100. That was at the O2 Arena in London. That's the latest from BBC Sport.
Nice one. Thanks very much, Nick Hatton. This is Up All Night. It's 2:37. Hello, Calum Macdonald with you till 5 o'clock. You're right, Gerard?
Good evening. Yeah.
Hi.
Good morning. I don't know. It's the middle
I know.
of the night.
I get confused too, man. We've got Gerard here because he's going to bring us a nice story in a little while.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. So more from the G-Man coming up a little bit later, formerly known as DJ Lego, of course.
Don't even go there.
Don't even Lego there. Yeah, strong. Right, let's do part 2 of our big internet moment, shall we? It's Josh Denzel, Nikki and Sammy, and Sarah Manavis.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
There's absolutely no question that YouTube Rewind became that, and I think what we've picked up on there is the idea of a lot of the characters that are on YouTube. So let us, for better or indeed for worse, talk about this guy.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment, and I don't expect to be forgiven. I'm simply here to apologize.
Who is it, everyone?
It's Logs, isn't it?
It is. It's Logs.
He's another Ohio.
Logs.
I'm an Ohio gal, and he's an Ohio boy.
Are you proud to be from the same place?
No, I am not. I'd be shocked to hear.
I think there's a lot to go at this. And by the way, we won't just be talking about YouTube in this little while, because I need to ask Josh how to get 1 million followers on Instagram before we're done.
Very simple. Go on.
Well, yeah, I really doubt they'd have me, but more on that later. I think I probably want to start here. And let's just hear one of our 5 Live presenters' takes on what happened when Logan Paul and KSI boxed each other at the Manchester Arena.
It's a load of piffle.
There you go. Yeah. It's Stephen Nolan, everyone.
Did you go to that?
No, I chose not to.
Well, Josh, this is the thing, because I was going to ask, because you're very into sport and you do kind of a lot of work with various, you were at Sports Personality of the Year the other day, all that kind of stuff. So let's take it from that point of view, first of all, as a sporting event, KSI v Logan Paul. What do you reckon?
It's like, to be honest with you, like when you hear it be announced, and okay, right, you know, Logan Paul's fighting KSI, right? They both got 1 billion subscribers on YouTube. Like, you know, the money signs just are flying. But then, you actually, as a sporting event, like it's not amateur. It's not even amateur boxing. It's like a white collar fight. They should have like 10 tables of their drunken mates. Like that's the level that they should be. Like, you know, they're not athletes. Like they might be in shape, but I know a lot of the boxers, whether it be at the top level, like from the Derek Chisora or Dylan Whites, the AJs, to then also the guys who have been grafting, like the John Ryders of this world, who have like basically waited their entire career for a title shot, and yet are still fighting, you know, 5th, 6th on the bill in front of, you know, maybe 1,000 people, you know, or at York Hall, and they're fighting in front of 600 people, and like genuinely that is their livelihood. They're fighting to like literally put food on their kids' plate, and then to see 2 YouTubers, which, you know, I've got nothing against them, but to then have, you know, was it the most lucrative fight ever? Most views on YouTube. It's like, how has this happened?
Well, so without wanting to clang a name drop, so I spoke to KSI exclusively after the fight, and he was like,
Go on, Callum.
I know, thank you. I like to think we're great friends now. I know, I think we are good friends. I did not speak to Logan Paul. But anyway, so KSI was like, oh, the money that's being talked about, we didn't make as much as everybody thinks we did. There's one of our guys. So you might have heard of Steve Bunce, who does a lot of comedy stuff on 5 Live, Boxing Pro. He reckoned they were going to make tens of millions of pounds each just from that single fight.
Wow.
And just some other stats to sort of cement its place as a moment of 2018 for sure is, I'm looking at it right now, it's got 10 million views on YouTube, which actually I would suggest is probably lower than everybody thought it was going to be, but hey, who am I to judge? But it was KSI, we were asking about the rematch and stuff. And apparently the contract said that as soon as it went past, I can't remember, was it the first or second round, that there was going to be a rematch. And of course, there'll be lots of videos and lots of profit, I'm sure, made on the, oh, will there, won't there be, kind of videos and diss tracks and whatever in the run-up. But he suggests that it's going to be in the summer. I was there, I was ringside at the boxing. In fact, I want to play you a little bit, because it was fun. It was a really fun event. It was huge. There were 17,000 people in the Manchester Arena.
It's crazy.
It was
that
just
is
insane.
actually insane.
Yeah, it was packed, absolutely packed. And we were the only place that were doing kind of live updates. We weren't allowed to do live commentary for obvious reasons, but we were doing live updates. So it was me and Stephen Nolan, who you just heard a minute ago. And here's a little bit of how that went.
It's not that you're not young that you don't get this, it's because you've chosen to not get this. And that's completely fine. As I say, that's your decision to make. But I don't think that negates what these guys have done for months.
It's an entertainment event tonight.
So
it is not a box. Stop dressing this up as some type of legitimate boxing match.
When was the last
it's an
time we all got
entertainment
excited
gig
about
with a couple of YouTubers.
When was the last time we all got excited about a boxing match that wasn't set up to entertain?
I genuinely don't believe that you're trying to tell me this is a legitimate boxing match. I do not believe it.
He sounds triggered.
Yeah. So Nolan quite often does, to be fair. But I think there's an interesting thing in all of that. You know, there's several interesting points to all of this, isn't there? So, I mean, Stephen is like, I don't know, 40 plus. But he's well into stuff. So he loves MMA. He flies to Vegas to see MMA fights. You know, he's very showbiz like that.
Right.
But this was something that he just would not sign up to at all. And I just think that's so interesting because, I mean, there were parents there in the arena that night with their kids. I don't know, they'd probably been dragged along. And I think it's that the generational thing is interesting. The fact that they wanted to box anyway, I think, is interesting.
Yeah.
And I just think that kind of move away from simply doing YouTube videos of playing FIFA, as KSI, you know, does / used to do, to actually wanting to put on an event like this is quite interesting, isn't it, Nikki and Sammy?
Yeah, I mean, that jump, I mean, it's not jump, they've worked hard at it, but that is amazing to see. And I like to think, on a side note, the parents were there to see their kids' favourite YouTubers get punched in the face. That's why they're there. I will say, I think 2018 was the year that we're seeing the biggest increase in generational divide compared to you see BBC and your kids' programmes, then there's this massive drop off until like the 24 bracket, and there's like, where are they going in between? And I think the reality is, and what we see as well with our audience, is they are 18 to 24, and that's where they're coming from because they're just not being provided for. This is why there's a divide, because there's just nothing to encourage a crossover, and this is why this boxing event was so interesting, to hear your colleague there going off, and then you're saying, actually, this is It's just really evident of the problem at the moment.
Completely.
I do think as well, like, there's this weird overconfidence, especially in the Paul brothers, not to keep harping on that.
Are you
but
not
like,
a fan?
But it's kind of like what Josh was saying, where it's like, it is almost like an insult to this thing that like people try so hard to do, and they just kind of show up and do like a kind of
the X Factor, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a half-assed version. They do this with music too. Like Jake Paul, the younger of the Paul brothers, he had like a diss track.
Those diss tracks were going
I mean,
awful,
seriously. But like, there's one called "It's Everyday, Bro."
Yeah,
so great.
But it's something like "It's Everyday, Bro" with that Disney Channel flow.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, these are like, I know.
Red card.
It's really bad. But the thing is like, on iTunes, that song like knocked a Kendrick Lamar song out of its spot, like very briefly. I think it was only for like an overnight type thing. But the Paul brothers are just so cocky. They were like tweeting at Kendrick Lamar being like, come at me, bro. Like, I'm about to knock your spot, like whatever. And that really terrible.
How many Grammy nominations did Kendrick Lamar just get?
And I think this is where like it really especially gets at me, because it's not like they're like, hey, we're just going to do this kind of jokey thing. And like, obviously it's not very good. we've got enough money to throw behind it that it can be of a certain production quality, even if the content sucks.
Yeah.
I.e., it's Everyday Bro, based on those lyrics and the boxing match. But it is like the fact that there's like this weird flagrant disrespect for it. And I think that only creates that divide that you're talking about, where it's like, then when adults do get exposed to this, they're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I think also the other problem is you've got these massive social media stars waving the flag and carrying it for all of us other YouTubers, and it makes us all look like we've got this massive disrespect for whatever medium we're trying. Whenever we try and go along to things, I think we're often trying to re-educate what a YouTuber actually believes.
Yeah.
Because we're not all cocky and we're not all making terrible mistakes all the time.
The thing is as well, I think when YouTubers, I guess, cross over into the mainstream is because, you know, people talk about, there's this diss track going on, or there's this boxing fight, and then everyone else is saying, right, it's terrible. That's the only time that you're like non-YouTube watcher, like the mums and the dads hear about it. So they've got this negative perception all the time. Yeah. Whereas then you go, oh, but actually, do you know what? Have you ever seen this video? Oh, it's really nice. Like, you know, it's about saving little
mental health
and stuff, or mental health, whatever it may be. They don't see those. They only hear about the sensationalist, crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
And like 90% of YouTube is like benign. It's just like, it's just people doing like very, very simple and basic things. And I mean that in a positive way. Like it's just, it really isn't representative, but those are obviously the guys. It's interesting to watch. Yeah. So those are the people that end up making a ton of money.
On your point there, Josh, about like the kind of coverage that YouTube stars get, it's an interesting one, because I try fairly regularly to get big names on, and I'm grateful that we have several on this programme right now. But it's like a lot of people will not speak to us because they have that perception that it's like, oh, this is only going to be a negative thing.
The lame stream media.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Preach it, sister.
Callum, you can talk to me whenever you want.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. But it's that thing. It's like, well, actually, we're trying to kind of bridge the gap a little bit here. And to be fair, this is a very much a generalisation, but a lot of YouTube stars simply won't come near us. And frankly, they don't need to, and I get that. But actually, there is a thing there where it's like, there's an element to which if you speak to us, if we can kind of do an interesting interview with you, then actually it lends credibility, and it kind of it can bump you up in the sort of public perception, I suppose.
I think it's a fear of like, oh, how are they going to spin that? Are they going to ask me what I earn?
Well, it's
that's
the
like
culture
in the UK, isn't it? The America is a few years ahead, and Europe actually. But in the UK, there's this real contempt for social media talent. No matter even if they're sitting there doing amazing campaigns like we did one with Stand Up to Cancer with lots of other YouTubers.
Yeah, it was great.
And I think that's never highlighted, just the negative press, when there's a lot of great education channels. I've got a friend that runs an English channel teaching people around the world how to learn English, and there's all these amazing successes, but in the UK there's just a real disregard for that and just the contempt. So for us to do anything with Radio 1 is a big step in that direction, for hopefully being more crossover, and it seems to be going well, so hopefully that things will be changing. If we're looking at rewinding, Joe Sugg was just on Strictly and nearly won. I think that was a good thing for YouTubers, because most of the people that I'm not saying that Strictly have an older audience, they do.
Categorically do.
I think that's one of their few exposures to YouTubers that hasn't been negative. So I think that's a good thing for anyone on social media, regardless if they're a YouTuber or if they're whatever they want to be. I think that was a great exposure for them.
That was Nikki or Sammy. I was never sure. They're twins, by the way, and I was never sure which one was actually speaking, which is a little bit awkward. But anyway, Josh Denzel was there as well. He was a finalist on Love Island, and Sarah Manavis from the New Statesman as well. Just looking back on some of those like internet moments that happen, that get talked about a lot, and actually what the kind of ins and outs and consequences of them are, because these things are, more relevant now than ever. So that was that. And you can, by the way, listen back to that full thing, because that was just a little taster, actually. You can listen back to that full thing on the BBC Sounds app. It's in the Livewire section, which is exciting. And you can go back and listen to the full thing, or you can search on there for Internet Moments of 2018, and that'll bring that full thing up for you as well. This is 5 Live, of course, where we do news, and we sometimes do a little bit of sport as well.
Declan Rice, with his right foot, scores his first goal for West Ham.
Live Premier League football.
Willian in the penalty area, right footed, glorious goal!
Than anyone else on Saturday with a 12:30 kickoff. Wolves host Leicester, and from 3 it's Liverpool against Crystal Palace.
Mo Salah waits, hands on hips. He runs forward now, and Mo Salah powers the penalty.
The best live sport.
This is your football station.
This is 5 Live.
Hello, it's Up All Night and it's 10 to 3. We're with you till 5 o'clock this morning. Thanks for your company. It's lovely to have you there with us. I don't know about you actually, but I worked all day on Thursday in the newsroom here, and now I'm doing a night shift and I'm pretty knackered. Liam's here from the news team. Hi, Liam.
How the devil are we? Hello.
I'm all right, thanks, mate. And Gerard's here too.
Good evening.
And the reason they're here is because we're going to play a little game to try and wake us all up.
Hello, good evening, good morning. Welcome to Rory's Backwards Quiz. I'm Rory Alskerry, exclusively on BBC Radio 5 Live's Up All Night. How you doing?
Yeah, hi Rory, not too bad, thanks. That's Rory Alskerry, everybody, who's here to guide us all through this brand new feature where we try to wake up a little bit and see if our brains are working.
How are you all? Feeling tired, wide awake, ready to go?
Gerard, how are you?
I'm all right, considering it's the middle of the night, you know?
Yeah. Liam?
I'm really good, thanks. Thank you, Rory. Thank you for asking. Thank you for being here in person.
Good to see you, Rory. Yes, well, indeed. And Rory, I believe you've got a quiz for us.
Oh, boy, do I have a quiz for you.
All right, great, yeah, great. This one, we've called it Rory's Backwards Quiz, so I'd quite like to know how it works.
Do you want to know how it works?
Oh, yeah, I would really love to know how it works. Can you possibly explain it?
It's pretty simple, really. I give you the answer, and you tell me the question.
Oh, I see. Right, okay, so it's... Here's the answer, what is the question?
Okay, so do you understand the quiz?
Well, I think I do.
Gerard, do you get it?
I'm good. Is now a good time to say I'm terrible at quizzes?
You can sometimes be a bit slow.
Thanks, Rory.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it, that? So Liam is actually here to kind of guide us through. You look confused. Are you okay?
Yeah, but I'm just getting flashbacks to New Year's Eve and playing a game similar to Pad the Time. That's what this is reminding me of. Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, I think, Rory, we should have an example.
I'll give you an example.
Okay, good.
If I said 48, what would you say?
You said 48. I would say the number of biscuits I ate on Thursday.
Is it the Remain vote?
Oh, interesting.
A highbrow answer there. A highbrow answer.
You know what? I have no idea.
Okay, well, I think it's actually the number of votes that it took to trigger a vote of no confidence in Theresa May.
That's right. How many letters did it take to start the vote of no confidence in Theresa May before Christmas?
Right. Good. We all got the idea. We're all on board. By the way, you can play along. So if you want to suggest what the question to the answers is, you can text us on 85058.
Let's play Rory's Backwards Quiz. It's time to hand over to tonight's host,
Liam Smedley.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Right, good.
Coming.
Let's go on with this. Come on. Right, go.
Okay. So, question: Have you got a number? Okay.
Number one.
14 grams a day.
14 grams a day. So that's the answer.
But what is the question?
Okay.
Let me think.
I struggle to quantify, like, what is 14 grams? I don't know what that really looks like.
It's small.
It is quite a little amount, isn't it? Okay, 14 grams a day.
Is the amount that Calum is bench pressing in the gym?
Well, have you seen this? Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, he's on the protein shake.
I mean, it's actually just water because I've not been to the gym in about 3 or 4 months.
All the gear, no idea.
Thanks.
Like,
am I allowed to banter along with this because I know the answer. I read it in the news yesterday.
Yeah, but we'll do the answers after 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Because we want people who are listening to get involved and to think if they know the answer.
Okay.
So,
hold fire.
So what? 14 grams a day was the answer there, right? So we're trying to work out what the question is. Okay, good.
Number two.
100 million years. That's 100 million years.
I actually have no idea. Okay. 100 million years is a long time.
100 million years.
Is it how long it'll take Gerard to make a joke that we all laugh at? No? Okay.
I shouldn't have laughed at that, you know.
100 million years is just ages. So these are all kind of news-related, sport-related things you might have come across on 5 Live or whatever, is the kind of idea here.
Yeah. I genuinely don't know the answer to that one.
No, neither do I.
But I do know the answer to number 1.
Okay, great. Right, let's move on.
Okay.
Number 3.
And number 3, it's back to Rory because it's an audio question.
It's a sign of maybe it's somebody joins the police when they're older, they've had them a long time. Does that mean that they're really bad at their job? Not really. It's just, a piece of tribal wear.
Oh, interesting. Tribal wear.
Tribal wear.
I think I know that one.
That's a woman who sounded a lot like Rory.
Tribal. I'm down with the tribal wear, I think.
I have no idea.
I think I know what's happening there. Tribal wear. I've written tribal wear. Are you writing down your answers, by the way?
I'm writing down ideas.
Okay, fine.
Oh, am I meant to be writing down?
No, because you get the answers. You're the host. Are you with us? 85058 if you think you know what the question is for these answers. Do let us know. On we go.
Number 4.
Madonna, Jack Whitehall, Katie Piper, Tony Livesey, and Reese Witherspoon. Spot the odd one out there.
It's my fantasy dinner party.
Oh, God. Okay, go through them again. Who are they?
Okay. Madonna,
right.
Jack Whitehall, Katie Piper, Tony Livesey, and Reese Witherspoon.
Okay. That's quite a mix of people, isn't it, there?
So what's the question? What do they have in common?
Oh, and no, because the answer is those names. So the question has to get us to those names.
Okay.
Okay, gosh, right, okay. This is tricky, actually.
Very tricky.
This is quite tough. Okay, good. Names. Tony Livesey's the one that's catching me out a little bit there.
You think?
Number 5.
Palmer. So I was hesitant there because I wasn't quite sure of the pronunciation. Palmer, grasp, reflex, your coccyx, and this.
Is that the bit? Oh yeah.
Is bit wrinkly, but it's there.
Okay. Can we hear that again by any chance? Let's have that clip again because that was okay. Good. Let's go for it.
Is that the bit? Oh yeah.
Bit wrinkly, but it's there.
Okay. So that's obviously Tony Livesey and Anna Foster off 5 Live Drive.
Yeah. Weekdays from 4.
Yeah. Tony does swim a mile a day, by the way, so that would explain that.
Okay, so a bit wrinkly. Okay, fine. Right. Okay, good. We actually have
I can give you a hint.
Oh, please do.
I'm allowed to give you a hint. So what they're actually referring to in that clip is the the palmaris longus tendon.
Oh my days. Okay, fine. Right, 85058 if you think you can get involved. Linda's texted in with a potential answer for one of them. Thanks, Linda. 85058 is the number. And we actually have a bonus question tonight.
Number 6.
And your bonus question tonight is 3:12 a.m. Which is, when will this horror stop?
Yeah, undoubtedly when I'll be fired.
That's question number 6, 3:12 a.m.
Oh, Matt, these are really difficult.
I'm so lost.
Yeah, I'm
just going to say.
I think we've designed a really impossible quiz. Carl and Drax is getting in touch on one of the other questions as well. We'll read your text out after 3 o'clock, by the way. So 85058 if you heard the answers and think you can provide what the question is that gets us to that answer, which I think kind of makes sense. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, Paul.
14. It's do you know what? The tribal one I think I'm okay with. The names has really got me. 100 million years I'm lost. To be honest, I'm lost on most of these, actually. That's really embarrassing.
I have no idea.
Well, we're going to have a little think through the news, I think, aren't we? Right, Liam, thanks for now. We'll come back to you in a little bit for some answers.
You're very welcome.
Right. Okay, good.
Okay, what we'll do is take a quick break from the quiz-based fun, and we'll have the answers in a minute. But first, well, it's probably time for the travel or that funky beat up to the top of the hour or something. Anyway, be right back in a moment.
Nice one. That was Rory's Backwards Quiz Part 1. So we'll come back in a few minutes and we'll work out what on earth the questions were that should get us to those answers.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And if you're as lost as we are, then I'm not surprised. You can text 85058 for the next few minutes and we'll try and get some of those right answers read out, if indeed anyone is able to provide them. A little bit later on as well, in the next hour of the programme, we've got Gerard's story time, of course. Gerard's got a pal who's got some cool chat, so we're going to find out what that's all about. We're also doing something on ASMR, which we'll find out all about. Basically, it's some relaxation techniques, which might come in handy for you in the middle of the night, or might be the last thing on your mind if you're actually busy and working or driving or whatever. But we'll come to that in the next little while. Right now, Anna Hodges has got the news. It's just gone 3 o'clock.
The Duke of Edinburgh is unhurt following a car accident.
In sport, Pellegrini says Arnautovic can leave West Ham if the price is right.
The The Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, has emerged unhurt from a car accident near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. The 97-year-old was helped from his Land Rover, which overturned yesterday afternoon. 2 people were in another car treated with minor injuries. Nick Cobb was driving nearby moments after the crash.
The first vehicle we saw was a Sandringham estate Discovery police car, which is a plain car but blue flashing lights. There's quite a bit of debris on the road. Saw a Range Rover on its side and a car in the hedge. 6 or 8 ordinary cars all parked around with people helping, and just beyond that a normal police car with the lights going, directing traffic.
Theresa May has met party leaders and senior MPs at Downing Street as she tries to find a way forward for Brexit. She'll publish a new plan on Monday after her withdrawal agreement was defeated in the Commons. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's refused to meet the Prime Minister on the issue until she rules out a no-deal scenario. The senior Labour MP Hilary Benn is among those to have taken part, though.
We made it very clear that the government has to rule out no deal. That is the first step that they have to take. And secondly, the Prime Minister needs to change her red lines. They're going to reflect on what we had to say. They're meeting many people, other colleagues from the Labour Party and other parties, and we'll see on Monday what the government is planning to do.
Meanwhile, a senior figure in government has suggested the Speaker of the Commons could be denied a peerage when he retires because of what's seen as his bias during debates on Brexit. Ministers are reportedly furious at John Bercow's recent behaviour. Our political correspondent is Chris Mason.
This is the latest twist in that row that started last week about whether John Bercow had overreached himself in the view of some shredding procedural precedent to accommodate MPs wanting to thwart the government's plans for Brexit, with a cabinet source saying, maybe you won't get a peerage when you retire.
The GMB union says Hitachi's decision to suspend work on a multi-billion-pound nuclear power station in Anglesey raises the very real prospect of a UK energy crisis. The company says it's been unable to reach an agreement on funding. President Trump has stopped the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi from making an overseas trip, even refusing the use of a government aircraft. He says she should be in Washington because of the ongoing government shutdown. Here's the Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff.
The Speaker's office has been in communication with the Defense Department about this. As far as we can gather, until very recently, this came as news to them. You'd have to ask the White House when this decision was made. It certainly sounds like it was another impetuous act of a president who has difficulty controlling his response to things.
And grey has become the UK's most popular car colour for the first time. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders says 500,000 people opted in for it in 2018. Now with the latest from the Australian Open, here's David Law.
Where Roger Federer is playing his 100th Australian Open match. He's trying to get to the last 16 of a Grand Slam tournament for the 63rd time, and he's doing pretty well at the moment. He's won the first set 6-2 against talented American Taylor Fritz, although Fritz is keeping his nose in front in the second set. 4-3 up he is. If Federer can get through this, he's likely to play the very talented 14th seed from Greece, Stefanos Tsitsipas, who leads 2-1 against Nicholas Basilashvili. He's now 5-4 up as Tsitsipas as well, so 3 points away from victory and potentially that clash against Federer. Also closing in on victory is Thomas Berdych. He is 2-1 up against Diego Schwartzman. Tennis breakfast starts for us on 5 Live Sports Extra from 7 o'clock in the morning. It's Rafael Nadal against Alex de Minaur, the Australian, so that's something to look forward to. And with the rest of the day's sport, here's Nick Hatton.
The West Ham manager Manuel Pellegrini says the club don't want to sell forward Marko Arnautovic, but he can move to China if they get a good deal. The Hammers have received a £35 million bid from an unnamed Chinese side. West Ham say that he's not for sale, but Arnautovic's brother, an agent, says he wants to move. Elsewhere, 3 days after head coach David Wagner left his job, Huddersfield Town have parted company with their sporting director Olaf Rebbe, while Liverpool defender Andy Robertson has signed a new deal to stay at Anfield until at least the summer of 2024. Ding Junhui is through to the semi-finals of the UK Masters snooker. It's after a 6-5 victory over Luca Bracella at Alexandra Palace. He faces Ronnie O'Sullivan in the last 4. And Johnny Bairstow top score with 98 as England made 379 on the first day of their final warm-up game in Barbados.
The weather, a cold and frosty start for many. Eastern areas will remain dry with spells of increasingly hazy sunshine. Western parts will see increasing cloud, rain and some hill snow spreading slowly east. The time now is just coming up to 3:05.
Thank you very much. Let's do some answers, shall we, to Rory's backwards quiz. Thanks for all your texts. 85058 if you heard a few of them before the news and you've got some suggestions. We're going to find out what's right and what's wrong in the next couple of minutes.
welcome back to Rory's Backwards Quiz.
Thanks very much, Rory. Nice to have you with us. Kind of.
It's time to find out who's won all the points. Back to you.
Liam.
Hello.
So you need to guide us through this, right? So, we had 6 questions. Well, this is the confusing thing. So we had 6 answers that we were trying to work out the questions to. So what you'll need to do, I think, is remind us of what those answers were. We'll give you some suggestions, and then I'm going to cheat and use all the text messages that people are sending in. Okay, good.
Right, so have you got my... I like to feel like I'm doing a chart show. Have you got my number?
Oh, yeah.
Number 1.
14 grams a day.
Right, so, Gerard, what have you got?
To be honest, I could have had all night on all these questions, and I don't think I would have gotten any further.
Okay, great. Have you got anything?
So I'm going to stick with my original answer, which is what kind of weight does Calum lift in the gym?
Okay, strong. I mean, it's witty at least, so, well done. I've written, Liam, the amount of red meat that we're advised we can eat a day. Well, in fact, I've written red meat, but the amount of red meat that we should eat every single day, according to that new thing the other day. Is that right?
That was going to be my suggestion as well.
Okay. Have you not got the answers open in front of you?
The answer's somewhere.
Oh, heaven help us.
I thought he was going to do the answers. Oh, there we go.
Jeepers creepers.
Don't fade out the song. Don't.
Have you got the answers?
I've got the answers.
Right,
don't make
good.
it sound like it's a complete catastrophe.
So, Gerard said the amount of weight I can lift in the gym.
Yes.
Is that correct?
No, of course it's not correct.
Right, fine. And I said the amount of red meat we're advised to eat every single day. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Excellent. Right, let's do some text then, because a pile of people jumped in on that. Well done, Linda in Scotland, who says 14 grams, the amount of red meat allowed daily in the planetarian diet.
That is what it was called, yes.
Great, thanks, Linda. I'm having a little scroll. Carl and Drax says, is the first question red meat? Yes, it is. So well done for texting in and getting it right. Good job. Right, good. Onwards.
Number 2.
Okay, so number 2 was 100 million years.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm struggling with this, to be honest. How old I feel at 7 minutes past 3 on a Friday morning? I'm stuck. Gerard?
Nah, I'm the same, man.
Nah, we're out of here. Liam?
So the answer was 100 million years is how old... Oh, are you going to go through some text?
No.
Do you want the answer?
Yeah.
100 million years is how old Saturn's rings have been determined to be, an age described as surprisingly young by researchers.
Nice, okay. Kudos, though, to Carl, who texted in saying, is 100 million years how long it's estimated to take to sort Brexit out? Which probably might not be too far from the truth. Okay, well, fine, so no points there.
Number 3.
This was actually an audio question.
Okay, yeah, cool.
So, should we hear that again?
We can try. So it's Rory's quiz question 2, Jack. If you're up for that. Here we go, let's play
It's a sign of, maybe it's somebody joins the police when they're older, they've had them a long time. Does that mean that they're really bad at their job? Not really. It's just, a piece of tribal wear.
So I want to go first here. This is about tattoos, I'm pretty sure. And I think I heard something in the haze of Thursday about police officers having to take photos of their tattoos. That's my guess.
I was thinking tats, but yeah.
Okay. Liam?
Are you ready for the answer? It is police officers with tattoos. South Yorkshire Police are asking people who want to join the force to send a picture of their tattoos with their applications.
Nice. Okay, strong. Well, I'll take a point for that. Thank you very much. Okay, good. Where are we up to?
Number 4.
Madonna, Jack Whitehall, Katie Piper, Tony Livesey, and Reese Witherspoon.
Is it who we asked to host this quiz before we finally ended up with Liam Smedley?
No, because Livesey would have definitely jumped in there.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Right, okay. I don't know.
I'm
stuck.
dying to know the answer.
Yeah, I'm out on this one. Go.
Okay. They've all taken part in the 10-year challenge where you post a picture of yourself now against a picture from 10 years ago.
Oh, I see. Nice, okay. I'm going to read R in Cambridgeshire's text in a minute or two because R has actually piled in on most of the questions, which is pretty strong. So we'll come to that in just a second. I mean, I bottled that one. Right, next.
Number 5.
Palmer, grasp reflex your coccyx, and this.
Is that the bit? Oh yeah.
Is bit wrinkly, but it's there.
So, okay. I just don't even want to know. I wondered if it was like something to do with like earlobes or something like that. Like something on you, like your.
I thought maybe some sort of injury or something.
I can't work out the question, Liam. I'm really struggling.
Okay. I'm struggling to even read the answer. An evolutionary anthropologist has been sharing the story behind 8 pieces of vestigial traits, evolutionary leftovers that serve no obvious purpose.
Good. I mean, that is a very up all night question. I enjoyed that.
How do you write vestigial traits on a P45?
Literally don't even know. Right, and the bonus question.
Number 6.
Okay, I think I have this one as well. So I think David Law mentioned it earlier in the programme. I think it's when Joanna Konta's tennis match finished.
Oh, so this was 3:12 a.m.
Oh yes, sorry, the answer. Sorry, I jumped in because I was enthusiastic.
3:12 a.m. Gerard.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Which we are seconds away from actually 3:12 a.m.
That's ironic.
So, do you not want to wait till 3:12 a.m. to actually reveal the answer?
I'm not filling for 48 seconds. We need to wrap this.
3:12 a.m. was the time at which Joanna Konta's match again.
Nice. Good job.
Finished last night in the Australian Open.
Cool. Nice one. Well done to Calvina, who got that one right, and Jazz in Leamington Spa, and also Helen, who texted in and got all of that right. Nice one. Okay, good. Well, to be honest, I pitched that as something to help wake us all up, and it's absolutely drained me. Just trying to think of answers.
I think my IQ went down, Joe.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
I found it more stressful than watching Sunday Brunch when Johnny Vegas is on.
Oh, gosh. Right, thank you, Liam. I think you did well, all things considered. Right, good. Take us out, Rory.
Join us same time next time for another game of Rory's Backwards Quiz.
12 minutes past 3 on Up All Night, and Fulham play Tottenham soon.
Live Premier League football
than anyone else. On Sunday, it's a London derby. We'll be at Craven Cottage for Fulham against Spurs. Kickoffs at 4 p.m. The best live sport.
This is your football station.
This is 5 Live.
Hello, it's Up All Night with Calum Macdonald, here till 5 o'clock this morning. Thank you for your company, and thanks for getting involved as well on the quiz there. I think we've got quite a few texts, so thanks for sticking with us. Now, for the next few minutes on Up All Night, we're going to chat about ASMR, and we'll find out more as we go along, because we have a very special guest with us. Hello, Gibi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Where about in the world are you?
I am in the Midwest United States.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for coming on our programme. It's great to have you on.
Yeah.
Now, we're obviously in the UK, we're broadcasting in the middle of the night, but as we like to say on Up All Night, it's always breakfast time somewhere. So hello, wherever you're listening. What is ASMR, first of all, Gibi? Can you just explain that to us?
Well, ASMR, it's an acronym. So it stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. Okay. And essentially, that's just used to describe this huge genre that sort of cropped up starting about 8 years ago, but now has really gotten big in the last couple of years of relaxing sounds. And people who experience ASMR report feeling actual like tingles or like a buzzy feeling that's like very pleasant in like your head or maybe down your back and things like that. So there's a bunch of us who make ASMR content in order to help people relax, and a lot of times people use it to fall asleep as well, among other things.
So I should say actually at this point that before the end of this conversation, we're going to get Gibi to sort of show us, or demonstrate I should say, some ASMR techniques. And so I just wanted to mention to anyone who's listening who doesn't want to feel overly relaxed or potentially, start feeling a bit sleepy if you're driving or if you're working or whatever, that is something just to be aware of. And perhaps you should go and listen to one of 5 Live's brilliant podcasts, maybe Brexitcast on BBC Sounds. So just that's something to think about. What got you into ASMR? How did you find out about it? And then you make loads of YouTube videos sort of that are ASMR themed. And so that's now what you do. How did that come about?
I actually was a listener forever. I started watching it about sophomore year of high school. So around 8 years ago, I was watching ASMR myself because I had terrible trouble falling asleep, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, restlessness. It's just like you can't turn your mind off. So I would just watch random YouTube videos, whatever I could find, until I basically just passed out. But I actually did one of those YouTube rabbit holes where I sort of just started falling into like these different videos, and I found the whispering community, which was just people whispering while they made videos, and that sort of turned into the ASMR community that we know now. So
like just people literally just whispering is considered as ASMR.
So do
you need to get that? All right, that's fine.
That was my alarm to be on the show, so we're all good.
Sorry, we got you on a bit early. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Is whispering a thing? Whispering is something that counts as ASMR.
It is. It's actually the most popular trigger is people's voices, either soft speaking or even whispering.
Wow. And is that something you do? Tell us what you kind of do on your channel. What are your sort of favourite techniques, I suppose? We'll demonstrate them in a minute, but what are your kind of favourite things to do?
I do like to do a lot of speaking, a lot of, the whispering and the soft speaking as well. I do a lot of role plays, which essentially will put somebody into the position of a relaxing scenario. So I'm speaking to the camera like it's a person, and somebody consuming that content, feels like they're there. And you use special microphones, so it really sounds like I can be in your ears. So you always want to be wearing headphones when you first try something like that.
I find it so intriguing that it's videos that are used largely, or there's certainly a big community on YouTube for this kind of thing, because a lot of research suggests that kind of watching videos and stuff and having like a screen in your face is not that conducive to being relaxed and falling asleep.
A lot of people will, flip their phone over if they don't want to hear it. And a lot of the times people will just be watching them in the background. I watch them a ton, like while I work, just to, relax and de-stress. But if I have it on in bed, I'll oftentimes just flip my phone over.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think as well, I kind of did the same as you when I was like researching this ahead of tonight's programme. I ended up watching, I don't know, more YouTube videos than I can count about this. But one thing that actually kind of that struck me was, just because of the way YouTube videos work, was that sometimes I was watching what should be like a relaxing video, but then like a really loud advert popped up in the middle of it, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my days, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's actually pretty taboo to put ads in the middle of any ASMR videos. If I ever do an ad, I'll make sure it's at the very beginning, so you get it out of the way and then you're done. Yeah, that's my personal choice anyway. That's
so interesting, because presumably something like the ads would pull you out of that relaxed state that you're trying so hard to get into.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
I can't stand it when that happens.
What sort of things really work for you then when it comes to ASMR? So you mentioned before that you kind of had restless sleep and all of that. What were the things that properly helped you?
So since I make a lot of the role play videos, that's actually what I tended to watch, because it was distracting enough for me to not be thinking about whatever was stressing me out, but then relaxing enough to put me to sleep. So it was like this perfect medium for me. I really like like personal attention triggers. So it's things that, might relax you in real life, like somebody brushing your hair or something. People will do that on camera, and you get to hear the sounds, and you sort of get the same sort of like visceral reaction that you might get in real life, down to just like very basic tapping sounds, people reading out loud stories, even soft singing. I find a lot of those really useful.
Yeah, okay.
Gibi, Gerard here, by the way. I'm joining Calum in studio. So I have trouble sleeping, but I find some of these sort of like meditation and stuff, I find like it doesn't really work. You're kind of jumping into the ocean with it. Is there a starting point with all of this?
I definitely would say context helps a lot. A lot of the times, if somebody just shoves a video in your face and you're not ready for it, it's going to be pretty weird. I think a simple tapping video, or maybe there are a lot of videos called trigger assortments. So it's people doing a lot of different tests and different sounds, and you can find what you like there and then explore it in other videos. But I would say make sure, you're very comfortable, you have headphones on, there's nobody around, so you can sort of let yourself relax. Since the first time you watch it, it's definitely a feeling of what the heck is going on right now.
What's a tapping video?
People really like the sound of fingers or nails, like tapping on items.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I do. I put on like the sound of rain when I go to sleep at night.
Do you?
Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
All the time? Would
yeah,
you do that every night?
I struggle to sleep. When I'm left to my own thoughts, I actually find it harder to get to sleep than when there's something a little bit distracting but nice and soothing. So
that's exactly
this is quite interesting to me. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Because for me, I would probably more instinctively put on like a podcast or a radio program or something, and kind of fall asleep to that. And that, I mean, it's just people like we're doing now, I guess. People just kind of chatting away. And
exactly.
I think it's, for me as well, do you know one thing I've done in the past as well? I have a really loud clock in my bedroom, and nights where I've struggled to get to sleep, I actually really focus on it ticking. And for some reason that seems to
Well, famously, relax. Wayne Rooney used to fall asleep with the Hoover on.
Really?
Yeah.
And I guess, Gibi, that's like the white noise thing, I suppose, the Hoover, would you say? Is that about right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard of all of that before. None of that is new to me.
Really? Yeah. Well, of course. yeah, absolutely. That's fair enough. Is there any sort of science behind like what works for some people? What certain people might be more drawn towards?
The most popular trigger reported so far has been the soft-spoken, just gentle voices. And then I believe hairbrushing is up there along with personal attention, tapping, scratching. But there hasn't been a ton of science on like specific triggers working for people. That's why I think there is so much variety that you can find on YouTube, because, you know, what works for somebody might not work for somebody else. It's really just a matter of finding out what works for you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so fascinated, as I say, and as you were saying, you kind of just disappear on YouTube, don't you, most of the time? But actually, like, you just drift into so many videos finding out about this. Right, okay, well, I think it's time. So I just want to kind of mention again that if you are listening to this and you're doing something that requires your full attention, and you don't want to relax, you don't want to kind of feel a bit sleepy, if you're driving or whatever, then maybe just sort of either, I don't know, open the window, maybe zone out for a few minutes. I'm not sure. But just a bit of a warning to kind of be aware of what's about to happen. But Gibi, can you kind of take a couple of minutes and just, you know, relax us, I guess?
Sure. So what I would do is first you get quite close to the microphone, whatever one you're using, and you put on your best radio voice and then make it about 50% quieter. And I'm fairly casual when it comes to ASMR videos. I'm a very casual person, so I'll just say, hello, how's it going? I hope that you're doing well and that you're comfortable. And today we might be going through a couple of triggers to help you sleep. Maybe some of the more popular ones, such as tapping or liquid sounds, if you don't mind those. So then I would explain what I have in my hands. And since this is radio, it's a bit different because I work a lot with visual triggers. So they would see me pick up a mug and I would just start tapping on the mug because it just sounds pleasant and for no other reason than that. And sometimes we don't need any other reason. And something else that I might want to tap on is this. I have a smooth coaster here. I believe it's made out of marble. And I do like to describe what each thing feels like. So this is more like a thick piece of stone. And I'm using my fingernails to tap, but some people prefer a little bit softer.
I'm kind of getting it. I understand why people would engage with this and really feel it kind of powering them down, I suppose.
Because it's intentionally relaxing, which is nice.
I've interrupted there because some of our technical guys are actually close to falling asleep, I think, next door. To be fair, they're on their last night shift and stuff with their run, but I think we've kind of made them drift off.
Yeah, it's late for you.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, Gibi, it's so interesting. And I mean, you know, do you make a living from this? Is this what you do?
Yeah, full time.
Yeah, cool. How many? You've got like 1.5 million subscribers, right, on YouTube?
We just hit, I think, 1,600,000.
Amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
there's big appetite for this stuff.
A lot of people need to relax.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of people who, of course, listen to our program who do struggle to get to sleep. So perhaps some of these techniques might actually help. So that's what we're here for, which is cool. Thanks very much, Gibi. It's really cool to speak to you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
No, total pleasure. And thanks for taking the time to do a bit of a demonstration for us. Well, I love that. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
Nice one. Well, good night. I'm going to try. I've got another hour and a half on the radio, so I'm going to have to try and, psych myself up again. Yeah, exactly. But thanks for your help and guidance and advice. That's so cool. That's Gibi there, and you can check out her YouTube channel, of course, if you'd like to pick up some more ASMR techniques and videos and stuff. I had no idea you struggled to sleep, Gerard.
Yeah, I don't know. I think my mind is a busy place. So Wow,
really?
Yeah.
You'd never know.
But it was only recently I got put onto it. It does work. So genuinely, I'm going to go and try it.
Yeah. So the rain thing is your big one, right?
Rain, kind of crickets, that whole thing.
Crickets as well.
Nature type stuff is what helps me.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's interesting as well. I don't know. I guess I'm probably quite fortunate that I've never really struggled to sleep, but the occasional time when it happens, it's always a radio program. That's what sends me off.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I was getting at. When I've tried things like meditation and stuff like that, but you really have to it's like training a muscle. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's probably the same thing. You have to train your mind to be able to switch off and do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, Gibi's videos are worth checking out if you struggle. This is Up All Night. It's 3:25 on 5 Live. And just a quick mention of some great content from 5 Live from yesterday. There you go, Paul. Told you I'd do it. Someone who's showing no sign of relaxing anytime soon, of course, is Joe Pavey. The British runner's aiming for a record equalling 6th Olympic Games next year at the age of 46. So, why she decided not to hang up her competitive trainers?
I just love running, and I think if you love something, you just want to keep doing it. And I love the way that it gives us that good quality family time as well. I've got 2 young children. We love getting out, being active as a family. Like they go on the bikes and we go along the canal, or we go to the forest and go on the coast path and things like that. And we just absolutely love it. And I think just recently I got injured in the autumn and I was just about to do some races and I ended up not doing them, which was really silly because I injured myself at the last minute. But I think the sessions I was doing on the track just before I got injured made me think, actually, this is maybe a realistic possibility. And I've really enjoyed my running career. I've been honoured to represent the country at 5 other Olympics. And I just thought it's a goal. And obviously it's a big ask. I'm not complacent. It's a tough ask. There's so many talented girls coming through. But, you know, it's worth a try. I really want to try and achieve it. And if I don't, I'll enjoy the journey along the way. But
you've got to have something to aim for, haven't you? This is it. You need to have some kind of goal. And when you've done what you've done for so long and you're so used to being goal driven, it would feel strange probably not to have one.
Yeah, I think for everyone out there thinking, you know, make some fitness goals and things like that. And it's a known thing that if you set yourself a goal, it gives you that reason to get out the door and you enjoy it and you know what you're aiming for. And I thought, you know, I set myself this goal and I think it could be realistic. And I know it's a big challenge, but I think it's one that I'm hoping I can try and achieve. And I think it's really just my love and passion for running that's really kept me going. And I just thought, well, if I love running, I may as well keep doing it and keep setting myself new challenges because it really adds to the enjoyment I'm having, really.
Yeah. How do you feel physically? I mean, you mentioned the little injury there. Are you finding you're getting more niggles like that now or not?
Yeah, not really. I'd say at the start of my running career, I got more niggles because I wasn't conditioned to it. I hadn't really learned much about running. And I think as you get older, one thing is you can always gain experience. Like however old all of us get that like running, we're always learning. We can always use the experience we're gaining as far as what training works for us and what training is good to do for specific events. And I like to think that age can be experience. And of course, I need to listen to my body, but the other thing is being a busy mum, juggling everything. When I was younger and I just focused on running, I didn't have to think about juggling my training around parties, play dates, you know, kids' activities, school runs.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, I know a lot of busy parents out there find the same thing. And I think one thing that surprised me when I was fortunate enough to win the gold in 2014, it showed me really that having that happy balance in my life really led me to achieve things that I thought probably wouldn't have been possible. And I think that happiness and that balance is actually helping me a lot, really.
Yeah. Do you think sometimes athletes step out too earlier than they may be needed to, because there's just this whole societal pressure when you get to a certain age? Oh, that's it. Your career's over now. You need to think about doing other things.
Yeah, I think really everyone retires at a time that's right for them. You know, I'm probably not in my prime anymore, but I still think I can achieve things and set myself goals. And people said, you know, you should really maybe retire when you're at your fastest and things like that. And I said, I don't think I'll ever retire. I'll just gradually fizzle out. And I think really it's just my enjoyment for running and the way, as I spoke before, about being able to get out and be active as a family. And I think it's really fun to be able to show your young children that it's good fun to get out there and get active. And that really motivates me a lot. But everyone retires when it's right for them. But I think the great thing about running is you can always keep doing it. However, sort of much slower I get over the years, I'll still enjoy going out, meeting loads of people, taking part in massive events and that, running with other runners. And it's such a great thing to be part of the running community. And that's one thing that really inspires me and keeps me going, really.
There you go, Joe Pavey there speaking to 5 Live Drive, which is on 5 Live, of course, weekdays 4 till 7. There's a promo, Anna and Tony, you're welcome. Hello to Christine, who's texted in, 85058's the number. We were just doing that item, of course, on ASMR, where we spoke to Gibi, the YouTuber, who does loads of ASMR videos for her 1.6 million subscribers, which is pretty cool. And Christine from Bangor's been on saying, I've used hair dryers for years to help me sleep, and now my 2 daughters, aged 20 and 15, are the same. I think that's like you and the white noise thing, I think, isn't it? And just the kind of...
Yeah, something to distract you.
Yeah, just takes your mind off
But hair
stuff.
dryers are so noisy.
They are noisy, but I remember my sister, who is a bit of a science boffin, saying this once, that like if you're asleep in the morning, for example, a hairdryer won't wake you up because it's a constant noise. In fact, you'll stay asleep. But if somebody comes in and like sprays a can of deodorant, that kind of burst of noise.
On you? Or?
Well, no, not on you. Just like in the room.
I don't know about that. Hairdryer would wake me up in the morning.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
You're so fussy. Right, coming up in the next half hour, we're going to speak to Joe Delaney, or hear from Joe Delaney, who's an Instagram personal trainer.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And I'm not being funny, he put my biceps to shame. He's a buff man, he's in good shape. He's in good shape. Anyway, Joe Delaney coming up in the next few minutes. First, though, the news with Anna Hodges at 3:31.
The Duke of Edinburgh is unhurt after he was involved in a car accident yesterday afternoon. Prince Philip, who's 97, was driving a Land Rover that ended up on its side near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. 2 women in the other car needed minor hospital treatment. Pharmacists say they're struggling to get some medicines and are paying vastly increased prices for them. The Royal Pharmaceutical Society says stockpiling for Brexit appears to be a factor. A government source is suggesting that the Commons Speaker could be denied a peerage when he retires. Some ministers are reportedly furious at what they see as John Bercow's bias during debates on Brexit. And President Trump has postponed an overseas trip by the Democratic Speaker of the House. He's told Nancy Pelosi that she should stay in Washington to help bring an end to the partial government shutdown. Now let's take a look at the Australian Open. Here's David Law.
Where Roger Federer, the 20-time Grand Slam champion, defending champion as well, is starting to put on a show against the young American Taylor Fritz, who's having to smile at the absurdity of it all because a 37-year-old is running him ragged at the moment. 6-2, 7-5 and now 3-1 to Federer, the third seed, who shows no signs of slowing down. If he can get through this in the fourth round, he'll be taking on Stefanos Tsitsipas, very talented Greek player, who it would be a fascinating battle between the two if that happens. Elsewhere, we've just had Thomas Berdych going through, and Arina Sabalenka, one of the young players in the women's draw, is just about to start. A lot of people think she might have a deep run here. We'll be on with sports with a tennis breakfast on BBC 5 Live Sports Extra from 7 o'clock in the morning, and with the rest of the day's sport. Here's Nick Hatton.
The West Ham manager Manuel Pellegrini says the club don't want to sell Marko Arnautovic, but the forward can move to China if they get a good deal. The club say he's not for sale, but Arnautovic's brother and agent says he wants to move. The Hammers have received a £35 million bid from an unnamed Chinese side.
Well, when you have so high offer, everyone wants to leave, but he has a contract here, so we know what happened about that in the next days. Well, of course, everyone is seeing about his future. He knows what is the best option for him, and now we will see what happens between the clubs.
Elsewhere, Huddersfield Town have parted company with their sporting director Olaf Rebbe 3 days after head coach David Wagner left his job. The club say the parting of ways has been agreed as the best for everyone concerned. Liverpool defender Andy Robertson has signed a new contract that will keep him at Anfield until the summer of 2024. Ding Junhui will face Ronnie O'Sullivan in the semi-final of the UK Masters snooker. It's after coming from 5-4 down to win a final frame decider against Luca Bressel. Bressel looked set to win before missing a red to the middle pocket, but Ding, though, backed himself to come through.
I believe in myself doing good in deciders. It's not about the decider who win it. It's about who's want to win it. He got a brilliant chance to win it, but he missed in middle pockets, and it's just unbelievable until I have the last chance to put that long ones, and I think game will be finished.
England have called up Mark Wood to their squad for the 3 tests in the West Indies after fellow pace bowler Ollie Stone was ruled out. Stone has a stress fracture of the back and will return home today, while Wood, who is set to be part of the limited overs match in the Caribbean, is expected to arrive over the weekend. Meanwhile, Johnny Bairstow made 98 on the opening day of England's final warm-up game in Barbados against the West Indies Presidents 11.
It's naturally nice to get to 3 figures, but to be quite honest with you, these warm-up games are about spending time in the middle, getting your movements going, getting a rhythm to your batting out there, and if you can spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours out there, then that's all that the guys are looking for, to get that rhythm.
And in the NBA, the Washington Wizards beat New York Knicks by 101 points to 100. That was at the O2 Arena in London. That's the latest from BBC Sport.
Nice one, Nick Hatton, and thanks, Anna, for the news as well. Hello, it's 3:35. This is Up All Night. I'm Calum Macdonald, and I think I forgot to read out R from Cambridgeshire's text, didn't I, during the quiz a little while ago. He got question 1 right, he got question 3 right. I'm just checking question 4. Question 5 he didn't get right, but question 6 he got right. So thanks for taking part. Nice one. Right, before 4 o'clock then, we're going to hear the story of a guy who managed to trick a Filipino talent TV show into letting him be a guest judge. More on that coming up on Up All Night. Hello, thanks for your company.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Let's welcome our next guest. More than 230,000 Instagram followers. His name's Joe Delaney, and frankly, he's the buffest man I've ever seen in real life. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
How are you?
I am very, very well.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. Thanks for coming in, man. Nice to meet you.
I appreciate the introduction as well.
Yeah, that's all right.
What an intro that was, yeah. 231, but whatever.
Yeah, well,
who's counting?
We round up more
Exactly.
than. We go for more than. How on earth do you go about getting 231? That's more than Gerard has. 231,000 followers.
I really don't know, you know. I mean, I should come out with some ebook, but I would have to figure out how to do it first. I think I was pretty lucky, to be honest.
So, for those who don't know, I'm not just complimenting Joe on his buffness just, you know, to charm him. Actually, that is basically your life. That is what is on Instagram.
Correct.
Tell us what you do.
This is actually a question that I get asked often enough, such that I should actually have a response to it. But it's quite hard to categorise, because there's certain words that are associated with what I do that you don't really want to call yourself. Like, nobody wants to say I'm an influencer. Well, people do want to say it, but yeah. I mean, you know, it doesn't sound great. I suppose I am an online personal trainer / YouTuber. Okay. So my YouTube content is based on fitness and travel primarily.
The older kind of generation though, they must not know what you do. Like someone who's not on YouTube, they don't follow your videos. Do they think like get a real job? Like what are they?
Yeah. I say online personal trainer, and people say, how does that work? Like, you know, I don't think my mum and dad really still think I have a job, so that's something.
But it is. I mean, it's a fair question though. How does it work, isn't it? Because like as a recovering fat person, my impression of what
well,
thanks of what a personal trainer is I go and see them face to face.
Yeah.
And you know they shout at me for a while, and then I go home, and that's kind of that. So how does that work when you're online?
The best way to explain it is this: if you go and see a personal trainer, hopefully he's going to put you on some kind of program that's going to have an end goal in sight, and then he's going to take you through that. But after the first few sessions that he's gone through with you, you know what exercises he's doing, you know how to do them. Really, what is he there for? Mainly just some kind of accountability on your part, to motivate you through the sessions, to help you count to 10, you know, all the difficult stuff.
Yep.
And for me, I think if somebody, in an ideal world, I would do part real life personal training and part online, and I would do the first few sessions with somebody. And I often say to people, if you're unsure about stuff, go see a personal trainer, get them to take you through whatever exercises you're unsure of, stuff like that. And so people will come to me, I put them on a program, and then I will have them check in with me every week, updating me on everything we can measure, pretty much, the weights they're lifting, the body weight, the body fat, if they have any means of recording it, all that kind of stuff. And I really kind of absolve myself of any responsibility in terms of being a motivator or someone who's going to hold you accountable. I'm not, I think everyone's responsible for themselves, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you're going to do something, then you need to be able to do it yourself. Are you going to pay a personal trainer forever? Are you only going to go to the gym when there's a personal trainer by your side? Or
motivation's it's half the battle, though. And I would say that most people get a PT for the motivational aspect. There's plenty of free info online. You do your YouTube videos. I mean, you can pretty much just watch them, get some info. Yep. So half the people just need someone to be there and go, are you going to be at the gym at 6 a.m.? Well, that would be my case anyways.
I understand that, definitely, because even though, as you say, there is a lot of information out there, people's willingness to actually go and get that information is a lot lower than you would think. You can learn anything on YouTube. You can learn how to podcast. I
learned the ukulele on YouTube.
Exactly.
Yeah, just bought it online, learned the ukulele.
If you want to learn computer languages, if you want to learn how to bake the perfect soda bread, it's on YouTube. But people are still paying other people to tell them. And I suppose having things explained to you vocally or in conversation or in real life is much more productive. You can't really match that with a video, because if there's a bit you don't understand, you're going to be pausing the video and going off into some rabbit hole trying to find out, clear up bits and bobs.
Yeah, I think what you say there about the rabbit hole is interesting, because one of the big things for me certainly is when you look at, I'm looking at your Instagram page now, right? You're in great shape.
Thank you.
You mentioned that. And there's loads of videos where you're kind of explaining what you're up to and on your YouTube channel and stuff, and that's all super helpful. And now that I've met you face to face, there's authenticity, right? But when I'm sitting on Instagram and I'm like, ooh, that guy's in good shape, I want to look like him, or, oh, look, he can run really far, I want to do that too. There's part of me which is like, are they giving me the actual information I need? Or how do I trust them?
Yeah, well, I mean, it comes down to your own ability to wade through and that is a real problem, because the thing that you see with people, especially in fitness, it's not always the most useful information that they're giving you. It's the information that's going to get the most traction on social media. So you see a lot of people post workout videos doing crazy exercises, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, this is not getting anyone anywhere. All it's achieving is making you good at this weird exercise.
That can feel really intimidating too.
Yeah, of course.
I can never do that in a million years.
But also, this is one of the reasons why people like PTs, because a PT will come and have you make up crazy exercises in the gym, and it'll be like, yeah, this week you're doing this week you're doing that, and people feel some sense of accomplishment about they're doing the new thing that nobody else is doing. And yet, like you say, it is just a case of trying to look at things objectively, trying to weigh up the motive behind putting that information out. If you're profiting off helping people, then there is always a conflict of interest, and so people have to just be very wary of that. And if you see something or hear something from somebody and you're not sure about it, then take it upon yourself to research it, or ask them, say, where is this from? Does this supplement work? Is there any science behind this? Are there any studies you can reference?
I think it's interesting you said there. It sounds to me like fitness is kind of a very simple concept that is made more complex by people in order to differentiate themselves from the competition. Like you said, I'm doing this new exercise that you can't do. Would I be right in saying it's calories in versus calories out? Get your exercises done.
Abs are made in the kitchen, lads.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Hey.
Yeah.
Well,
have you ever said that to a client?
There is definitely...
He's Joe Delaney, not Joe Wicks.
There is definitely...
Hey! Lead at 15. No lead at 15 here.
There is definitely a hierarchy of needs fitness-wise. So the bottom of the pyramid is, like you're saying, calories in, calories out, general consistency, adherence to anything is better than not adhering to the best routine. And then there is the very top, the final 5%, and this is where people like to kind of get bogged down and probably waste too much time. Now, the tendency for online, quote-unquote, fitness people to get behind particular methods is more to do with the fact that creating some kind of identity for your followers, subscribers to subscribe to, it creates a kind of sense of tribalism. You know, people want to belong.
It's like a cult.
People want to belong to a group. Yeah, correct.
It's a brand.
So
That's why companies make brands. I mean,
exactly.
So brand loyalty, and you follow it.
Yeah. So there's the intermittent fasting guy. You know, there's the guy who eats only one meal a day. There's all these diets that come out, and then people kind of cling to them with crazy loyalty because they just deep down just want to belong to something, want to be in a certain gang, and want to say, I follow this person, I'm this person, I do this, and then it'll be in their Instagram bio, like, you know, some what kind of diet you're on never needs to be in your Instagram bio.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's like one meal a day is no way to live.
Is that
that's ridiculous?
It'd be a great meal though.
Yeah,
I find the whole diet thing interesting because I've actually looked into it, despite what appearances may look like. I do take an interest, and I do look into it, and things like the keto diet.
What's that?
So that's when, is it 90% of your diet is made up of fats and then very low carbs?
That sounds familiar. Oh no, hang on, never mind.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so there are theories behind everything. There's keto's not too far from paleo, and there's always just a mishmash of studies.
How do you know, like if to an average Joe, how do you know which one to follow? Like, how do you pick your one?
I don't think you should follow anything that's called a something diet. If it's got a name, don't follow it, because you're just being one of the people who wants to be in a gang. You know, The thing is, there are some benefits to loads of things. I can find some benefit to eating pizza if I want to, but if I'm talking about net positive and negatives, you know, I've got to weigh it up, and I don't think any of those diets ever really come out on top. There might be specific diets that help for small subgroups of people in extreme circumstances, but for the most part, you know, if it's called anything, if it's got a name, I just wouldn't follow it.
Let's talk more about Instagram, right? Because, you know, we're all obsessed with having loads of followers, and obviously you've got heaps. So let's just...
Give us some.
Shout-outs.
Calum has one L. I probably shouldn't do that on the radio, should I? Anyway, so, I'm just intrigued, right? At what point it becomes feasible for this to be your life?
Obviously, numbers help, but it's not the only thing at play, because there is also, you know, there are a lot of pages out there that have a lot of followers, couldn't really monetize that well. For example, let's say I'm some girl with a big booty and I have this Instagram booty page.
Yeah.
Like, most of my followers then would probably be male. And then if I'm going to be working with companies that do female clothes or, you know, particular female fitness supplements particularly aimed at females, then I'm not really going to have much of a conversion rate there of monetizing that amount of followers. I honestly think that if you're really on top of it and you're monetizing well, which is actually not something that I do particularly well, to be honest, you could probably be making a living off, like, I don't know, maybe like 40, 50,000 followers, something like that.
Joe Delaney there with a bit of an insight into fitness and the world of fitness on Instagram. Probably a good time to mention the Fit and Fearless podcast that BBC Radio 5 Live makes, which, funnily enough, is available on BBC Sounds.
BBC 5 Live.
Download the free BBC Sounds app and discover the best of 5 Live podcasts, like Question Time, Extra Time.
It annoys me when they just go on and they've already made their point.
Here are the highlights from last night's programme. Eye of the Storm.
Hello, I'm Emma Barnett, and welcome to Eye of the Storm. I meet someone who found themselves at the heart of a news event.
And Rugby Union Weekly.
To dispatch them in the manner which they did with so many players unavailable. They're now doing it at the highest level.
Discover your next favourite podcast. Download the free BBC Sounds app.
5 Live up all night, coming up to 10 to 4. Take it away, Suze.
Here comes Gerard with a big story just for you. Where he has found this one, we haven't got a clue. It's bound to make you laugh or maybe make you whine. Let's Gerard and Gerard story time.
Hello, Gerard.
Hello, Calum.
You all right, mate?
That jingle, that has Eurovision Song Contest written all over it.
That's Suze. She can sing.
Yes, Suze.
Yeah, it's cool. Shout out to Suze. Right, welcome then to Gerard's story time, which is basically a little feature we've invented because Gerard has a cool story to tell, and so we wanted to just jazz it up a bit.
Hi, I'm Gerard, and I have some good stories to tell.
Yeah, okay. Right, well, let's not spend too. Let's get into it. Right, what have you got for us, man? I think it's somebody you know.
So,
let's start there.
Callum, this is the old classic story. You go on holidays to Asia for a few days and you end up becoming a TV celebrity over there. I mean, you know, surely you know it. It's happened to the best of us, has it not?
Man, I just...
Am I right?
Well, yeah, no, you're not. This is unreal. So some dude that you know goes on holiday and ends up on TV as a massive celeb. Talk us through it.
Nick Mulhall, he was actually my school, not my year. He was in my brother's year a few years above. Nick Mulhall was in Australia working, and he was on a visa run, which means you have to get out of the country for a few days to renew your visa. Decided to go to Manila in the Philippines for a few days. Enjoyed himself and decided to extend his trip a little bit. So it started by meeting a female, as all great stories do. And so he met this female on a night out, and it goes from there. So Nick kind of sets the scene for us.
I met this girl one night in a nightclub. She caught my eye, and then people started taking photographs of her, us, and I was like, you well known or what's the story? She goes, yeah, I'm on TV. I was like, oh, that's cool. And that's how I got to meet her, and that's kind of how it started, I suppose.
Right, okay, so he meets a girl, he's on a night out, meets a girl, and that's where the story starts.
So, this girl wasn't just, she was kind of a celebrity, and it turns out that she was worked on the show, which was a sort of Philippines Got Talent type thing. It was a talent show on TV. So I kind of wanted to find out his secret, really. I mean, the guy was in Philippines for a few days, and he was mixing in what he calls good circles, you know, celebrities, people of government, all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to get a secret. I mean, I went to Thailand for a month, and I was just chilling with backpackers. I mean, you know, I wasn't with guys of government, so I wanted to get a bit of background. What was his secret?
When you become friends with a few people that move in the circles, then they bring you along. So they'd be like, yeah, rock up to a club, ask for me. And next thing you know, you're in the VIP sections all the time. And then you get to know more people. And then the clubs get to know you and they just presume you're a VIP as well. You just roll with it. I suppose it's an aura, really. Just carry yourself well and, you know, just rock up and pretend you own the place and crack on and see what happens.
I love that. It's an aura. That's all it is. That's all you need.
So, this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
He has a lady friend, she works on the show, and one day she invites him to come along for a filming. She says, I'm filming today if you want to come along. He says, yeah. She goes off to work, leaves him on his own, unattended. And so she goes off, and he kind of overhears in the little Tagalog that he has,
which is the language, right?
Exactly, yeah, which is the language of the Philippines. Overhears kind of that they're looking for a judge and this sort of stuff. And so he takes it upon himself to maybe tell a few white lies and say that he has some experience in judging TV talent shows back in Ireland.
Well, I told him I was a former racing car driver, which is true, but they probably presumed at an international level, but it wasn't. It would have been a national level in Ireland. And yeah, I said I had my own TV show. I hosted it, and I told him that I normally judge singers, but I judged the odd dance group up and down, you know. And then we agreed a fee, because obviously I wasn't going to work for nothing. Again, given an impression of being, you know, someone who has their own show in Ireland. And she comes down and is like, why is my boss and director giving you money? I says, I'm a judge on segment 3. She's like, you don't even watch TV? I said, yeah, well, sure, look, I'll just Google Simon Cowell and go from there.
I mean, it's quite ridiculous. So this guy has got the confidence that when he's on holiday, he becomes friendly with somebody who then takes him to see a TV show being filmed, and then he ends up starring on the TV show.
I just want to bring
That's where we're up to.
I want to bring your attention back. The she he was referring to was actually the lady friend who brought him on set. So she went off and left him unattended. She comes over and she says, what were you doing talking to my boss? And he goes, yeah, I'm a judge now.
Getting a job.
Yeah. As you do.
Incredible.
So it went great. He got on. He said a few lines in Tagalog, and it went down a storm. Everyone was happy, and so they invited him back. So things kind of took up, picked up a bit of momentum. They invited him back, but this time he was more comfortable, and this time he knew what he was doing. He knew how to play up to the role.
So he kind of wanted to own it a little bit more.
Exactly.
He'd grown into this imposter thing that he was doing.
Exactly.
I see. Right, okay.
I brought a bag carrier with me the next time to make it look like, because anyone out there who's in that game, who's good, has a bag, just someone to carry your bag and bits and pieces and just gives a good impression again,
So you paid someone to carry your bags with you. What on set to the studio that day?
Yeah, you just rock up with someone carrying your gear,
What gear was he carrying?
Sweet really. I didn't have much gear. Maybe a different t-shirt or shirt, but a different pair of jeans. But that was probably for going out later on.
Man, so he is totally blagging it at this point.
Completely.
I mean, he is from the start, but now he's heightened.
Now he's deep in it.
Right. Okay.
But it doesn't stop there.
No, I know. I imagine it doesn't. I guess at this point it's worth reflecting. I mean, there is a serious thing going on here.
Yeah.
In that he's basically faked it onto a big TV show in the Philippines and kind of misled a TV crew, and been probably a little bit disingenuous, really, by the sound of it.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, taking it back to earth, I mean, he has misled a lot of people and told a lot of lies. So I did kind of put it to him. I said, well, do you have any kind of remorse for it? Or were you worried your cover was going to get blown? And the simple answer was no, he didn't really.
I let them presume I was an Irish celebrity. I didn't tell them that. I just gave the impression and they formed their own opinion.
Oh man, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm so conflicted. I think it's such a tricky thing because obviously lots of people are on the show looking to progress their lives and careers and whatever.
Yeah.
Lots of people are watching the show, like engaging with it and going, "Oh, this is great entertainment." And actually, he's got really no expertise and no right to be there.
Yeah, the dance crews are kind of taking what he has to say on board when it doesn't really come from any place of knowledge. And obviously, he's taken some other judges' job as well. So yeah, there is a.
But he doesn't really feel the kind of burden of responsibility for that. I mean, he just kind of went with it.
Doesn't sound like.
Okay, well, yeah. Okay.
But it doesn't stop there. So where were we? So the first show went well. They invited him back. That went a storm. So next, it kind of picked up even more steam. It builds on from there, and he gets approached by an agent. So he's come on holiday to the Philippines. He's appeared on TV, and now he has a Filipino agent who's kind of setting him up for personal appearances and auditions for other kind of stuff like that. And he ends up on the set with a massive Filipino movie star called Ann Curtis.
I'm back chatting to my bag carrier man. I was like, yeah, geez, how does this work? Like, how do you know if you got it or if you didn't get it? He goes, you have it. He goes, like, that was the opening scene. He goes, we're now doing the next scene. Because the next day I was going along in a taxi and I was looking up at a billboard and I was like, I had my my lady that I was seeing at the time with me. I was like, that's like the girl I was doing the movie with last night. And turned out it was. She was on billboards everywhere and stuff.
Right. So, I mean, in terms of this escalated quickly. So he's gone from being on holiday in the Philippines to blagging his way onto being a judge on a TV talent show to now being in a movie.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we don't want to dismiss the fact. I love the bag carrier.
Yeah, I mean, the bag carrier is a nice touch, isn't it?
I mean, and I think the relationship between him and the bag carrier, I mean, it's a better love story than Twilight. I'm telling you that. I mean, that's a movie in itself. And he kind of bases the level of stardom on the level of bag carriers you get as well. So, yeah, and that's where it ends. And now he lives a much more humble life. He's moved back to Ireland, and he's working in a car garage.
Now I'm back in Ireland, and I am running a car garage for my uncle who has some car garages in Ireland. So I'm loving that.
Great. So I mean, back down to earth with a bump there.
Yeah, indeed.
To be honest, isn't it? I wonder, I don't know, do we know how he enjoyed the celebrity lifestyle? I guess it's that sort of thing, like you can't lie forever, can you, in that sort of situation? So I guess you have to give it up at some point.
Yeah, I think he wasn't fazed by it. I mean, he said it was never really a thing that he wanted to keep on. So in his words, it was on to the next one. He seems like someone that nothing really fazed him. So,
yeah, absolutely. Nice. Well, what's his name again?
Nick Mulhall.
And we did ask, because I think we kind of made the point. It's like, well, what if you're pulling our leg? What if you're winding us up? And he was like, well, no, you can go and see it online.
The evidence is online of both appearances. Yeah. Yes. This did happen.
I don't know. To have the confidence to do that, I don't think I ever would. Gerard, thank you.
Thanks, Calum.
That's Gerard's story time.
Let's hear it for Gerard and Gerard's story time.
Nice one. Oh my goodness, what a story. Right, we've got an hour left of Up All Night. Thanks for being with us this morning. It's coming up to 4 o'clock.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And before the end of the programme, actually, a chance for you to join 5 Live's most exclusive club. I'll tell you all about that in the next 15 minutes or so. Get your phones at the ready, you need them to get involved. We'll have more on that in the next few minutes. Anna Hodges has the news first of all. It is exactly 4 o'clock.
The Duke of Edinburgh is unhurt following a car accident.
In sport, Pellegrini says Arnautovic can leave West Ham if the price is right.
Buckingham Palace says the Duke of Edinburgh is unhurt following a car accident near the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. Prince Philip, who's 97, was driving a Land Rover that ended up on its side yesterday afternoon. 2 people in another car were treated for minor injuries. Our royal correspondent is Nicholas Witchell.
No elderly person likes the idea of having their independence constrained, but I would imagine that the Duke and the Queen must be just pondering the sort of message that this sends in terms of self-discipline, responsibility, common sense, and wondering whether it isn't time to let the policeman and the chauffeur do the driving and quite literally to take a back seat.
A cabinet source is suggesting that the Commons Speaker John Bercow could be denied a peerage when he retires. The move would break a 230-year tradition that former Commons speakers are automatically offered a seat in the House of Lords. He's recently been accused of bias by ministers in recent Brexit debates. Meanwhile, the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's told MPs not to get involved in cross-party talks with Theresa May over Brexit unless she rules out no deal. The Prime Minister has been meeting other leaders as she prepares to publish a new plan on Monday after her withdrawal agreement was defeated in the Commons. Here's the former Labour Home Secretary, Lord Blunkett.
In terms of statescraft and diplomacy and understanding of the public, it would have been a good idea if he'd indicated that he was prepared to meet Theresa May, making his position on no deal absolutely clear. But of course we reach no deal if no agreement is reached within Parliament or if there isn't a second referendum.
A senior negotiator from North Korea has arrived in Washington. Speculation mounts about a second summit between Kim Jong-un and President Trump. Kim Jong-chol is believed to be carrying a message to Mr. Trump. A new report says the long-term plans for the NHS in England could be threatened by growing waiting lists and staff shortages. The government published the strategy last week, showing how the extra £20 billion pledged for the health service by 2023 will be spent. Robert White is from the National Audit Office.
There are organisations that are still in deep financial deficit, and we can see poor performance on waiting times. And some of that is a result of vacancies in the health services for doctors and nurses. Those 3 things need to be brought into balance.
The Department of Health says putting the NHS on a sustainable footing is a key priority in the plan. And Netflix ended 2018 with more than 139 million paid subscribers, adding 8.8 million members in the 3 months to the 31st of December. Executives have put it down to its original content, such as Sandra Bullock's Bird Box. Now with the latest from the Australian Open, here's David Law.
And Roger Federer has made serene progress into the last 16 of this tournament. It means he's into the second week of a Grand Slam for the 63rd time in his career. He has beaten Taylor Fritz, young American, in straight sets, and will now meet another young player, even more talented actually, in Stefanos Tsitsipas of Greece, 14th seed here, somebody we expect a lot of in the future, but is he ready to take on and beat Roger Federer, the defending champion here? We will find out in a couple of days' time. About to start Maria Sharapova against Caroline Wozniacki, the defending champion here. A real blockbuster clash in the 3rd round. 2 former champions about to go head-to-head. In the evening session, we've got Rafael Nadal against Alex de Minaur. That's on 5 Live Sports Extra. Tennis breakfast starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. And with the rest of the day's sport, here's Nick Hatton.
The West Ham manager Manuel Pellegrini says the club don't want to sell forward Marko Arnautovic, but he can move to China if they get a good deal. The Hammers have received a £35 million bid from an unnamed Chinese side. West Ham say that he's not for sale, but Arnautovic's brother, an agent, says he wants to move. Elsewhere, 3 days after head coach David Wagner left his job, Huddersfield Town have parted company with their sporting director Olaf Rebbe, while Liverpool defender Andy Robertson has signed a new deal to stay at Anfield until at least the summer of 2024. Ding Junhui is through to the semi-finals of the UK Masters snooker. It's after a 6-5 victory over Luca Bracella at Alexandra Palace. He faces Ronnie O'Sullivan in the last four. And Johnny Bairstow top score with 98 as England made 379 on the first day of their final warm-up game in Barbados.
The weather, a cold and frosty start for many. Eastern areas will remain dry with spells of increasingly hazy sunshine. Western parts will see an increasing cloud, rain and some hill snow spreading slowly east. The time now is 4 minutes past 4.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much, Nick, as well. Yeah, thanks.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Good morning and welcome to Friday morning on 5 Live. It's a few minutes after 4 o'clock if your alarm's just gone off. Hello, welcome to the day. Don't worry, it's not going to be all that bad. We're with you until 5 a.m. this morning. Coming up on the programme then, before 5, news from the UK and Australia as well. Important info that you need to start your day. And in the next few minutes as well, I'll be telling you how you can join 5 Live's most exclusive club.
Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Right then, we should start the day, shouldn't we, with a bit of Brexit chat, because Theresa May is going to be continuing talks with senior members of Parliament later as she tries to get a Commons majority to back her Brexit deal. Many of this morning's front pages are covering the story, with trouble highlighted for both the Conservative and Labour leaders. The Telegraph says May faces revolt against no deal, while The Guardian reports Corbyn faces threat of revolt if he seeks new referendum. I decided earlier to catch up with two political party members from different sides of this whole discussion. Josh Broadhurst, who is in the Conservative Party, and is a student at York, and Mike Buckley, who's a Labour member. He also leads Labour for a People's Vote, the campaign for another referendum. I asked them what they both thought of this current situation. And first of all, we'll hear from Mike, who I put it to him really that Jeremy Corbyn was possibly just being a little bit childish by refusing to meet with Theresa May.
I wouldn't say that he's being childish, no. I think, to be honest, it's Theresa May that's being childish, if any one of them is. Her deal has been voted down by a larger margin than any other vote in parliamentary history. The next worst was Ramsay MacDonald in 1924 over something to do with the Select Committee. Jeremy's making the right point, actually, that no deal is absolutely unconscionable, and any irresponsible Prime Minister would rule it out as being even slightly viable for the future of our country. So I think Jeremy making the point that he's making is simply saying to the country, look, this is not acceptable. We know from the government's own impact reports that if no deal happened, there would be a catastrophic loss of 3 million jobs, which would put the last financial crisis and most previous recessions in the shade. And there would be 158 billion a year cost to the economy. And this wouldn't just go on for a short period of time like a normal recession. It would go on for decades unless we re-entered the European Union or did something similar. So he's making the point that what May is doing is just effectively threatening him and threatening the rest of the country.
Josh, what do you think? Do you think Theresa May is playing this well or badly? It seems she's really failing to get Jeremy Corbyn to respond at all.
I think she's done the right thing. I mean, when you lose a vote in Parliament by that amount, personally, I had thought she should, on principle, resign. However, if she's not going to, then she needs to be reaching out to other parties, and she has done that. She's reached out to the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, Plaid Cymru, the SNP, all of which have gone and had these meetings despite actually being more Europhile parties than the Labour Party is itself. I don't understand why a man, Jeremy Corbyn, has actually called for all options to be on the table and then told Theresa May to take an option off the table. Surely he needs a new table, or he just needs to get a grip and go and meet her like the other opposition leaders have done and voiced their concerns.
Well, I mean, Josh isn't being entirely fair there. The options that we're talking about are when, basically, our conference motion, which we influence, says that when we voted down Theresa May Steele, which we've now done, we will call a vote of no confidence and try and get a general election, which we've now done. And it then says we will look at all options on the table, and that doesn't include no deal. All options on the table means that we will do everything we possibly can to stop no deal and to stop a disastrous Tory Brexit. Which is what we're now doing.
Is exactly what it says on the can, which is all options on the table, from second referendum, remaining outright, Norway plus, May's deal, a Labour-style deal, Canada deal, or even no deal. I don't want no deal, but all options on the table, to me, is what it says on the can.
You need to read the whole motion. The motion basically says where the Conservatives are leading us over Brexit is a complete disaster. We need to do everything we can to stop it. That includes full participation in the single market and a customs union. And the means that we will choose to stop it include voting down the Theresa May deal, which we've now done, trying to get a general election so that we can get a Labour government which would be able to deal better with this, which we've now tried and failed to do, and then looking at any other option to stop what the Conservatives are trying to do. Now, in my mind, of course, the only viable option and the only democratic option is a public vote, but it's incumbent on the Labour leadership to look at what those other options are. I don't quite see what another option would be at the moment, frankly, other than a public vote.
Well, frankly, isn't the Labour Party policy actually to end freedom of movement, which you can't do within the single market? So there we have a contradictory policy as it is. This is why people around the country and even in Parliament look at Labour and go, what is your policy? From the Lib Dems, we've got a policy. From Theresa May, we've got a policy. Even though it got voted down, it was a policy. The Greens, a policy.
It was a policy, but it was a terrible policy. Theresa May still managed to unite the worst aspects of soft Brexit and no Brexit. Because if you look at Brexit, it really is a trade-off between harming the economy and losing sovereignty. And Theresa May's policy managed to do both.
The problem with a lot of the parties on Brexit, or at least one, is that every other party in the Commons, you can actually criticise their Brexit policy because we know what it is. Jeremy Corbyn's policy, we're reaching over and going, what actually is your policy? I'll criticise it and I'll assess it, but I actually need to know what it is first. Why should people around the country, after he's called this confidence motion to try and take power, why would people actually vote for him anyway if he can't present to them a proper policy like the Tories have done, like the Lib Dems have done, the Greens, Plaid, SNP?
Our policy is actually since last September fairly clear.
Josh, can I just interrupt at this point? Josh, do you think that the kind of logical next step of all of this is going to be some sort of public vote, as Mike was just chatting about, whether that eventually becomes a general election or whether in fact it's another referendum of some description? Do you think that that is the logical next step here? Why get the people involved?
No, because frankly, for a start, another referendum, according to the papers given to Theresa May that she's been showing to leaders of Plaid Cymru, the SNP, have said another referendum will take a year to organise for a start. Two,
that isn't true.
Why should? Well, that's what the Downing Street papers say, produced by civil servants, not politicians. So I think I'm going to listen to the civil servants on this.
At a minimum, it can be done in 11 weeks, but it probably ought to take longer than that.
Okay, Mike, let's let Josh carry on.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
That's absolutely fine. As well, looking at a general election, we've got a government. It has a majority. It has the confidence of Parliament. So we need to stick with the government and Parliament we've got. Because, frankly, you have another general election when the time runs out, or either Parliament has no confidence in the government, which it clearly does, by a majority of 19. Now, on Brexit itself, the way forward is to actually work with the current numbers we've got rather than go back to the people, try and have another divisive referendum, which caused huge divides in society and would actually, in my opinion, shatter the public trust that people have in politicians, which is already stretched to breaking point.
And Mike, as somebody who leads Labour for a People's Vote, the campaign, of course, for another referendum, Josh makes some interesting points there, doesn't he? That there's undoubtedly a divided United Kingdom just now, and polarising people once again in another referendum feels pretty unpalatable to most people, doesn't it?
Well, you know what I think would be more damaging to society and more damaging to the cohesion of society, as well as more damaging to the economy, would be if Brexit went through. Because we know from every single assessment of what would happen after Brexit, including all the government's own impact reports, is that every version of Brexit carries an economic cost. Of course, soft Brexit means that you would lose far fewer jobs than under hard Brexit, but nevertheless, there is an economic cost to industry, to business, and to the ordinary working person who's literally just trying to make ends meet and didn't ask for any of this in the first place. So I actually think that, yes, a referendum campaign to some degree would, of course, be divisive because it would be over a question on which public opinion is clearly not settled. But at least it would be brief and then it would be over and we would have come to a decision that I think everybody would then deal with. I mean, if we vote leave again, I will accept that public decision because by that point, people will have made a decision based on something that's clear and on something on which they were informed rather than the cacophony of lies that they were put through last time round. Also, just one more point on that, if you don't mind, is that if Brexit goes ahead, there will be an economic cost. People will lose their jobs. Businesses will go under, industry will close down and or move abroad. We know that in economic hard times, people move to the political extremes. That's pretty much always the case in world history, actually. So I worry that if Brexit goes ahead, then people will move to the political extremes afterwards because there'll be in economic hard times, and that actually the divisions in our society will get worse rather than better.
So first, you're saying essentially because people will turn to the extremes, we should just bow to them and have this second referendum. Secondly, you were talking about the economics of it. Now, it is perfectly reasonable to say, because we've had the past few years where economic growth has slowed, that leaving the EU economically isn't the totally top best idea. However, it is more about economics, and the people you're talking about, like the working class, were told during that referendum that they would be £4,500 worse off a year, and they still, in mass numbers, voted for Brexit. They wanted to see the political benefits. They listened to the economic arguments that the Remain side spouted at people and, frankly, rejected them. So what makes you think it's going to be any different this time when jobs have been lost already?
You're right. George Osborne was very clear that people would lose out economically. The Leave campaign, however, said you can basically keep what you've got and have £350 million for the NHS, which was not true then, and we know for a fact that isn't true now.
Of course, I'm not gonna sit there and say the Leave campaign didn't lie. Both sides lied. But the point is, we had the vote. Both sides put their pitch forward, and people voted in the largest democratic exercise in British history. We need to respect that and try and do it in the best way possible for people, delivering both economically and politically where we can.
Can I just jump back in at this point as well? Because I think, for me, I love politics. I work in a newsroom. I can't get enough of following what's going on. But at the same time, part of me just feels so bewildered by this whole thing. And I'm just wondering how you guys, who are clearly very engaged and know what's going on and are into it, how do you feel at this point in time where things are chaotic? I think we can all agree on that. Things are uncertain. People don't really know what's going to happen next. And it's just a confusing time for everyone. Josh, how do you feel?
About Brexit itself, I'm sick of talking about it in a way. I want Brexit to be finished. I want us to get a deal. I want us to get out so we can actually get back to talking about domestic issues like the NHS, trains, education, crime, just things that ordinary people care about, that things that affect their children, affect their day-to-day lives, rather than Brexit that at the moment a lot of people are just looking at it saying, why isn't it done already?
Mike?
So I'd say a couple of things, really. I mean, I agree. I'd really like this to be over so that we can move on and talk about something else. And actually, one of the great tragedies of Brexit is that it sucked up government time and attention for getting on for 3 years now, and nothing else is being done, nothing else is being dealt with. And there are so many problems in society that we need to address. But unfortunately, Brexit makes every single one of those other problems, whether it's transport or the NHS or housing or unemployment or homelessness, it makes every single one of those things worse. And if it goes ahead, we'll continue to make every one of those things worse for years. So, I mean, before this, I did about 3 years working in the refugee migration sector, and that's something I've been passionate about for a long time, and is deeply important. But I couldn't continue to do that and not do something to address Brexit, because if Brexit goes ahead, it's going to make the people who are suffering from the difficulties in that part of the world, just the same as everything else, so much worse. This is truly systemic and foundational to what our country becomes in every area in the future. So yeah, beyond this, there are loads of things that we have to address. But if we let Brexit go ahead, it's going to make every single one of those things worse. My second point, though, is that I'm not surprised people feel confused, because I do feel that most politicians, and actually most campaigns on both sides, including the Remain side, just don't do a very good job of explaining Brexit to people. We talk so much about trade deals and customs unions and Norway and Canada Plus and all these things that I suspect people don't understand. And we should really be talking about what it means for jobs, what it means for wages, what it means for housing, what it means for your kids' futures, because I think these are the things that people really care about. We should be talking in those terms.
Josh, final word to you.
I just want to address something on the economics to get this in there. So you're saying it's going to be bad for everything. Well, I would make the point that the Treasury's own models, because they're not forecasts, they are models, as Liz Truss and Philip Hammond love to remind us, every single one of those models, even under no deal, despite it being static growth, predicts growth. And under the Bank of England's models, the only deal that doesn't predict growth is no deal. So I think to say that Brexit is just going to be this really bad thing economically is not true.
There you go, Josh Broadhurst there, who's in the Conservative Party and is also a student, and Mike Buckley, a Labour member, and leads as well Labour for a People's Vote, which is the campaign for another referendum.
Early Risers Club on Up All Night with Calum Macdonald on 5 Live.
Hello, good morning, 4:20 on Up All Night. It's Friday, the 18th of January, and a special good morning to you that you're up at this hour, 4:20 in the morning. Maybe your alarm's just gone off and you're just working out what on earth's going on. Maybe you're already been up and embracing the day for a little while, or maybe you've actually just not even been to sleep yet, in which case you have my sympathy. It's often said, we often hear meetings, we see PowerPoint presentations that tell us that loads and loads of people are listening to Up All Night right now. So we're wondering why. Why on earth are you up at 4 a.m. or just after 4 a.m. on a Friday morning? So join 5 Live's most exclusive club. It's the Early Risers Club. We're keeping an eye out for your texts. As of now, you can text me, 85058 is the number, with a quick hello, and get your name in the Early Risers Club.
Early Risers Club on Up All Night with Calum Macdonald on 5 Live.
85058's the text number. It's 4:21 on Up All Night with you till 5 a.m. Time now for our regular trip to Sydney to speak to Phil Mercer about the stories making the news down under. And starting with a tragic story from Melbourne that's made news worldwide. It's the story of a 21-year-old Israeli woman attacked and killed while she was on the phone to her sister. Phil, hello. In the last hour, I believe there's been a development on this story as well.
Yes, this is a terrible story from the south of Australia. This young woman from Israel, Aya Masawi, was studying at Shanghai University, studying Chinese and English. She was on an exchange program at La Trobe University in Melbourne. We understand that she'd been to a comedy club and she was chatting to her sister on the phone when it's believed she was murdered by a 20-year-old man. Now, her sister has told investigators how she heard the phone fall to the ground, followed by some voices. And you're absolutely right. In the last hour or so, we understand that a 20-year-old man has been arrested over the murder of this young student. And it's a crime that, of course, has horrified people, not just here, but around the world. Investigators do believe it was a random and opportunistic crime, possibly sexually motivated. And back home, Aya's family has obviously been trying desperately to get to grips, to come to terms with this horrible news. And her uncles, Ahmed Masawi and Abed Kitani, have given their reaction to the killing.
She was a very simple person. All the time we make fun with her, She's beautiful. She's clever, you know. That's why, till now, I don't believe how it's happened to her. I can't believe it.
أختها تعدى عليها وانقتلت في أستراليا.
Her sister was attacked and killed in Australia, live. She heard everything over the phone. She heard the cars passing by and she's helpless. She can't do anything. She started sending her messages and there was no response.
That's the victims' uncles there, Ahmad Marsawi and Abid Kitani. Phil, some other stories then from Australia, and one about former Neighbours star Craig McLachlan. What's happened with him?
Yes, he's 53 years of age. You may remember him as being a star in the early days of Neighbours. He starred as Harry Ramsey and was the brother of Kylie Minogue's character Charlene in the show. He was a mainstay of the soap opera, starring in that particular role for about 800 episodes. He also played Grant Mitchell, a likeable teacher in Home and Away, and he has been charged, Craig McLachlan, with a series of offences, 1 count of common assault and 8 counts of indecent assault. He's due to appear in the Melbourne Magistrates Court on the 8th of February. His spokesman says that Craig is innocent of these charges and will be vigorously expressing his innocence when the court case begins. And it's not the only court proceedings that Craig McLachlan is involved in. He's also suing a couple of media outlets here in Australia for defamation. What he's managed to do, he's managed to delay this defamation process so that he can concentrate on these criminal charges. But it's been a very tough time for one of Australia's most recognisable actors.
On now to 1 million dead fish in a river in the outback. What's happened? Does anybody know what's going on?
This is an extraordinary story coming out of Menindee. This is in the west of New South Wales, so deep into the Australian outback. And quite recently, a couple of farmers posted a video from that region online. It's gone viral, and they have shown a huge number of fish that simply died. And what is thought to have happened is that the river in question, the Darling River, was affected by a certain type of algae. There was a cold snap. That algae died, and in doing so sucked a vast amount of oxygen out of the river system, killing all of these fish. And you can see pictures online of these massive fish, some up to 30 years of age, predatory fish in that part of Australia, simply floating in the water. Lots and lots of debate here about what's to blame. Officials say that it's the drought, that simply there isn't enough rainfall in Australia, that the river is drying up, and that's contributed to this tragedy. Environmentalists and farmers, though, Calum, believe that the river system in that part of Australia has been very badly managed, that water has been taken out for cotton growers, for example, leaving fish and other species in the water vulnerable. So it's a very difficult balance to strike, according to Richard Kingsford. He's an expert from the University of New South Wales.
This is a tension that's not special to Australia. Many parts of the world are trying to tackle this. What I think is interesting in Australia is that we are the driest inhabited continent. These issues are very acute here, and governments are trying to do and address these, and I think we're one of the few countries in the world that is actually trying to buy back water from the irrigation industry to put back into the river. But the argument is that perhaps we're not buying enough of that water, and we still haven't hit the sort of magic balance for a sustainable river and a sustainable agricultural enterprise.
That's Richard Kingsford there, Professor of Environmental Science at the University of New South Wales. And Phil, Australia's been hit with a heatwave in recent times. Is that set to continue, do you think?
Well, it is for the rest of the day. We are expecting a cooler change to come through, but certainly this heat wave that's affected much of eastern Australia has led to various temperature records tumbling in the town of Whitecliff in New South Wales. This is a tiny community of about 150 people, about 600 miles from Sydney. They have endured temperatures of about 48.2 degrees Celsius. That's 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Here in Sydney, parts of the city are expected to reach 45 degrees Celsius. And of course, Calum, this is a country well used to nature's extremes, but the punishing nature of this particular heat wave is proving to be pretty hard for many people. And the authorities in some parts of Australia have simply told people not to go outside.
Yeah. Man, I can't even imagine. I can't even get my head around that as I sat shivering in my flat yesterday, desperately trying to sleep ahead of doing this programme. And it's been a while, Phil, since we've mentioned Elon Musk. I thought he'd gone away for a bit, but he's popped up again in Australia.
Yes, it's interesting that one of the candidates in the forthcoming New South Wales state election has been championing this idea that a tunnel could be built under the Blue Mountains. The Blue Mountains lie about 30 miles to the west of Sydney. They are a spectacular natural heritage site. And this particular politician, he's a New South Wales MP by the name of Jeremy Buckingham. He has long supported this idea that a tunnel could be burrowed under the Blue Mountains so that the region that lies to the west of the Blue Mountains could be opened up economically and agriculturally. It is a very important farming region, but the Blue Mountains is a bit of a block for development. So Jeremy Buckingham has long championed this idea that a tunnel could be a great idea, and he's received a response from Elon Musk saying that yes, he could do it at a cost of about £9 million per kilometre, and Elon Musk reckons that this project could be done for about just over £500 million. But it has sparked quite a debate in this country. Many tunnelling experts believe that it simply can't be done for that much money. One expert, Calum, describing Elon Musk's idea as Alice in Wonderland talk.
It seems that a lot of Elon Musk's ideas get kind of dampened down in some way, don't they? I don't know. Is he just imaginative, or is he a bit, I don't know, not quite know what he's up to. Phil, thank you very much. Thanks for bringing us those stories from Australia. That's Phil Mercer there reporting from Sydney. In the next half hour, we're going to read out your early riser text messages. Why on earth are you up at this time on a Friday? Text me 85058.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Also, the next few minutes, we'll look through some of the front pages, what's trending online, the big stories that you're going to be waking up to this Friday morning. That's after the news with Anna Hodges. It's exactly 4:30.
The Duke of Edinburgh is recovering after his car overturned in an accident. Prince Philip, who's 97, was driving himself and wasn't hurt. 2 women in another car involved had medical treatments but have been discharged from hospital. Pharmacists are warning about shortages of common drugs, including blood pressure pills and antidepressants. The National Pharmacy Association says a long-standing problem is being made worse by Brexit stockpiling. Theresa May has met party leaders and senior MPs at Downing Street as she tries to break the deadlock at Westminster caused by Brexit. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's dismissed the cross-party talks as a stunt and insists he won't take part unless no deal is ruled out. And union leaders are warning of potential energy crisis following the scrapping of plans for a new nuclear power plant in Anglesey. Hitachi, who's behind the project, says it can't reach an agreement over funding. Now with the latest from the Australian Open, here's David Law.
Where Roger Federer has moved through to the last 16 of the Australian Open, and for the 63rd time into the second week of a Grand Slam tournament. He beat Taylor Fritz in straight sets, a young American with talent, but Federer just too good for him, too wily, knew too much for him. He will now face Stefanos Tsitsipas, the young Greek of whom much is expected. That match is going to be in a couple of days' time. We're just awaiting the arrival of Maria Sharapova and Caroline Wozniacki, 2 former champions here at the Australian Open, who are about to go head-to-head in the third round. And one of the players that a lot of people have been talking about, Aryna Sabalenka, 11th seed, is in real trouble at the moment against the 17-year-old and Amanda Anisimova. 6-3, 4-2 for Anisimova, so Sabalenka could be about to go. Now with the rest of the day's sport, here's Nick Hatton.
The West Ham manager Manuel Pellegrini says the club don't want to sell Marko Arnautovic, but the forward can move to China if they get a good deal. The club say he's not for sale, but Arnautovic's brother and agent says he wants to move. The Hammers have received a £35 million bid from an unnamed Chinese side.
Well, when you have so high offer, everyone wants to leave, but he has a contract here, so we know what happened about that in the next days. Well, of course, everyone is seeing about his future. He knows what is the best option for him, and now we will see what happens between the clubs.
Elsewhere, Huddersfield Town have parted company with their sporting director Olaf Rebbe 3 days after head coach David Wagner left his job. The club say the parting of ways has been agreed as the best for everyone concerned. Liverpool defender Andy Robertson has signed a new contract that will keep him at Anfield until the summer of 2024. Ding Junhui will face Ronnie O'Sullivan in the semi-final of the UK Masters snooker. It's after coming from 5-4 down to win a final frame decider against Luca Bressel. Bressel looked set to win before missing a red to the middle pocket, but Ding, though, backed himself to come through.
I believe in myself doing good in deciders. It's not about the decider who win it. It's about who's want to win it. He got a brilliant chance to win it, but he missed in the middle pocket. And it's just unbelievable until I have the last chance to put that long ones, and then I think game will be finished.
England have called up Mark Wood to their squad for the 3 tests in the West Indies after fellow pace bowler Ollie Stone was ruled out. Stone has a stress fracture of the back and will return home today, while Wood, who is set to be part of the limited overs match in the Caribbean, is expected to arrive over the weekend. Meanwhile, Johnny Bairstow made 98 on the opening day of England's final warm-up game in Barbados against the West Indies Presidents 11.
It's naturally nice to get to 3 figures, but to be quite honest with you, these warm-up games are about spending time in the middle, getting your movements going, getting a rhythm to your batting out there, and if you can spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours out there, then that's all that the guys are looking for, to get that rhythm.
And in the NBA, the Washington Wizards beat New York Knicks by 101 points to 100. That was at the O2 Arena in London. That's the latest from BBC Sport.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live on digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
Hello there, good morning. The cold weather has arrived and we're stuck with it for probably a week or more. And for many parts of the country this morning, it's a really cold and frosty start. A widespread frost in Scotland and across England. Temperatures down as low as -4, perhaps -7 in 1 or 2 places in Scotland. Further west, though, we've got a weather front coming in from the Atlantic that is already bringing some cloud and some patchy, mainly rain into Northern Ireland. That's moving towards Wales and the southwest of England right now. Now, very slowly, this cloud and patchy rain will edge its way very slowly eastwards across the UK, and as it moves into the colder hours, so we're going to find some sleet and snow. That's more likely over the hills, southern uplands of Scotland, into the hills of northern England, the Cumbrian Fells and onto the Pennines, and particularly across the hills of Wales, where there could be a couple of centimetres by the end of the day. And we may see some wetter weather just edging towards the Midlands as well later on in the afternoon. And again, there could be a little bit of winteriness in that. Further east, across eastern England and eastern Scotland, it's likely to remain dry. There won't be as much sunshine as we had yesterday. We won't have that northerly wind, but it will still be cold. Temperatures struggling to around 4 or 5 degrees. Further west, particularly across western parts of Wales, southwest England and Northern Ireland, temperatures should be a little bit higher at around 7, maybe 8 Celsius. That cloud and increasingly patchy rain and sleet and hill snow will continue to push its way eastwards during the evening and leaves us with cloudier skies overnight, so there won't be as much frost for the start of the weekend, but we're left with some showers around and a dull day for most places on Saturday, another cold one, more sunshine and probably more frost early on Sunday morning before we see a weak front heading to bring a little bit of rain and hill snow down across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but most places on Sunday will be dry but still cold. Darren Bett, 5 Live Weather.
Declan Rice with his right foot scores his first goal for West Ham.
Live Premier League football.
Willian in the penalty area, right footed, glorious goal!
Than anyone else. On Saturday, with a 12:30 kickoff, Wolves host Leicester. And from 3, it's Liverpool against Crystal Palace.
Mo Salah waits, hands on hips. He runs forward now, and Mo Salah powers the penalty!
The best live sport.
This is your football station.
This is 5 Live. Calum Macdonald stays up all night on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Hello, 4:37 on Up All Night. We're with you till 5 o'clock. In the next few minutes, we're going to say hello to those of you who are up and about already this Friday morning. If you want to join the Early Risers Club, you can text now 85058. Give us your name, where you are, and why on earth you're up. Right now, though, we want to run through some of the stories that you're waking up to this Friday morning. And still most read on the BBC News website is the road traffic incident involving the Duke of Edinburgh.
Yeah, so the Daily Mail asks, how did he walk away? The Mirror's described the 97-year-old as cheating death because the pictures are pretty shocking.
Yeah, they're very dramatic.
We should say as well that Buckingham Palace has said that Prince Philip wasn't harmed, he wasn't injured. But, you know, road traffic incidents are traumatic at any time, aren't they? Never mind being 97. So this eyewitness, he was driving past not long after, and he described what coming across the scene was like.
As we approached the Babingley crossroads, we had a couple of cars flash at us, and then we realised there'd been an accident. There was a police discovery, which is the Sandringham Police, is the first car we saw, a plain car but blue lights flashing on the roof. There were 4, 6, maybe 8 ordinary cars anybody might drive, and then a Range Rover on its side. Just beyond that was a conventional police car. There was quite a bit of debris on the road, broken glass, a few bits of plastic, so we had to drive slowly in the middle of the road to go past. At that stage there was no ambulance, but there were a lot of people from the other cars that had stopped all milling around and helping. We had no idea who it was. My daughter actually commented, we don't know anybody with a Range Rover, it's nobody we know. But no, we had no idea at the time who it was.
That's the Duke of Edinburgh. You can read more about that, bbc.co.uk/news, of course. Elsewhere around this morning, the Daily Star says Ant and Dec are back on Britain's Got Talent, Liam.
Yes, they're going to be back on screen together for the first time in almost a year. This is for the forthcoming series of Britain's Got Talent. Ant obviously took a year off in the wake of the drink driving charge and a stint in rehab as well. So they're filming the next series. There's a lovely picture of them together. And, of course, he didn't present I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Holly Willoughby did that. And did he miss out on a big chunk of last year's Britain's Got Talent as well, I think?
So I think there was it was slightly awkward because I think he popped up in some of the VTs, the videos that had already been recorded in the films and stuff. And I think the big question had been, would he ever come back to join Dec? Because Holly and Dec in the Jungle were so popular.
It was the live episodes he didn't do.
There you
the
go.
recorded
That's
bits,
right.
But it was the live semi-finals he wasn't involved with.
And our last story that we've been chatting about a little bit through the night is on car colour. And the UK's favourite car colour is grey.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this story because I've got a grey car. And I didn't like it at first. I actually wanted a black car. And everyone I pointed to on the forecourt, they went, that's gone, that's gone, that's gone. So I got a grey one and I wasn't that keen on it. And now I really love it. I think it looks really cool. Because the problem with grey cars, this is a bit partridge, but the problem with grey cars is they get a lot more stone chips.
Okay.
But the UK seems to be really liking them because 500,000 of us chose to buy a grey car in 2018. That is for the first time since records began. Those statistics from the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders.
Nice one. Thanks for your help, Liam. Go and get ready for morning reports at 5 o'clock, which will run through the morning's headlines. We've been chatting as well on Up All Night to Paul Gallagher. You'll know that kind of every night on Up All Night we like to speak to one of the nighttime editors in the newspapers. So this time it's the turn of Paul Gallagher from the Eye, and we were finding out about what's in his paper, what the Eye are covering. And first up, of course, is Brexit.
This time it's Labour's turn to be torn over Brexit plans, specifically Theresa May's so-called Plan B. Senior Labour MPs in open conflict with their leader, Jeremy Corbyn, last night as they refused to join his boycott of cross-party talks on the Brexit crisis. Those tensions within the party over EU withdrawal exposed as the Prime Minister and senior ministers began meeting MPs of all parties in an effort to reach some kind of consensus following the crushing defeat for her Brexit plans. Now, Mr Corbyn has attacked the talks as a stunt, and he's insisted he will not meet Mrs May until she categorically rules out a no-deal departure from the EU, and he called on Labour MPs to follow his lead, sending every single one of them an email. However, certain senior members of his own party seem to either ignore that or not quite get it in time. Three senior figures, Hilary Benn, Yvette Cooper, both chairs of select committees, and Stephen Kinnock. They broke with Jeremy Corbyn by joining these talks with ministers at the Cabinet Office. Mr. Benn himself urging the Prime Minister to demonstrate a spirit of compromise. And he was asked if Jeremy Corbyn should meet Theresa May. He replied, "That is a decision for Jeremy to take. He's demonstrating that it's not just the Prime Minister who can be stubborn." Now, I think he actually meant that as something of a compliment, because he did go on to say there is a step she can take, by meaning to take the no deal off the table. And Jeremy Corbyn, in Hilary Benn's words, quite right to say to her, as all of us have, you must take no deal off the table. And Yvette Cooper, chair of the Commons Home Affairs Committee, she said the most important thing now is that the government actually listens, and it doesn't just think that the defeat that was that huge can simply be dismissed. Jeremy Corbyn himself, he was at Hastings yesterday. He defended his decision not to enter these talks with the PM to try and solve the Brexit crisis. As I say, he went on to describe it as a stunt and not a serious attempt to engage with the new reality that's needed, he told party activists. Lots of pictures in the eye, of course, of various members of the DUP, of the European Research Group, of the Tory party, and indeed Plaid Cymru and others going into the Cabinet Office to continue these talks. But one key person, the leader of the opposition, still refusing to do so himself.
There you go, that's Paul Gallagher from the Eye on Brexit. Let's stick with Paul now, because doing the rounds this morning in the papers, online as well, I was just reading about it, in fact, on the BBC News website, story about asthma. So Paul explained a little bit more.
Somebody now suffering an attack every 3 seconds, according to new figures. This from a survey of 10,000 people with asthma by the charity Asthma UK. They reported having an attack on average twice a year, and almost 5.5 million people in the UK now being treated for asthma, and experts therefore were able to calculate that this average is one attack every 3 seconds. Now, previous studies have suggested that the average was more like one every 10 seconds. So this is certainly worrying the experts at the charity, given that attacks can be life-threatening, with 3 people dying every day, actually, from an attack. And their clinical lead at Asthma UK, Dr. Andy Whittemore, he said it was shocking to think that every 3 seconds in the UK someone could be having an asthma attack, a terrifying experience that can cause distress and in some cases prove fatal. Charity warning that if people need to use their reliever inhaler, that's usually the blue one, 3 or more times a week, or are waking up at night because of their asthma, they should contact their GP. And they should also seek help if their symptoms such as wheezing or a cough are getting worse or interfering with their usual activities. So rather stark warning there from the leading asthma charity in the UK, and it equates to 1 in 11 children and 1 in 12 adults now actually receiving treatment for asthma. And hospital admission figures for the condition have risen year on year for the last 7 years, from about 65,000 a year in 2011 to almost 80,000 in 2017, according to the latest stats.
More from Paul in just a sec. I just want to run you through some of the things that we're reading about on Twitter and what's trending. Question Time, of course, was on last night, and you can listen back to Question Time Extra Time. Adrian Chiles, of course, you can hear Question Time live on 5 Live on Thursday nights, and then react to it with them and hear all the discussion in the studio as well. You can listen back to that on BBC Sounds right now, but most of the trending topics on Twitter this morning are still from Question Time from last night. Fiona Bruce getting a lot of love, of course, her second week presenting Question Time. Diane Abbott, who was on the panel, her name is also trending as people reflect on some of the things that she said. So Question Time, and also BBC This Week. There is a lot of appetite on Twitter for politics. I don't know if you've noticed that, but people love taking the conversation there, rightly or wrongly. Right, Paul Gallagher again. Let's find out about everyone's favourite, potholes. Now, I did a programme a couple of weeks ago over Christmas where we talked about potholes, and I've never seen the phone lines light up as much as they did then. Apparently, as Paul tells us, some local authorities can deal with them quicker than others.
The fastest councils in Britain aim to fill severe potholes within minutes, Others take more than a day, and some rather longer than that. These are figures from the analysis by the research charity, motoring research charity, the RAC Foundation. They found that Cumbria, Flintshire, South Lanarkshire, they're the best in the country, apparently. They try to act immediately to repair defects which pose the greatest safety risk to road users. But the most common response time, 2 hours, and 79 authorities looking to patch up roads within that time. Fortunately, I should actually specify who is the worst. Coventry City Council, they've got the longest target time for severe potholes. So people in and around the city will perhaps know that the response from Coventry Council, 5 days. That's their target. So rather longer than half an hour in some other parts of the country. And following behind Coventry, Leicestershire, they take up to 2 days. Well, that's the target time, I should say. Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, a day and a half, along with Bournemouth, as I say. Something of a postcode lottery, the RAC Foundation calling it, and many a cyclist will know that it can take rather longer, perhaps some must even all year round.
Paul Gallagher there from the Eye. Morning Reports is on the way at 5 o'clock with all the morning's headlines, and of course 5 Live Breakfast along from 6 o'clock this morning with more on all the stories that we're talking about on 5 Live today. Right, it's time to bring some people in to the Early Risers Club.
The Early Risers Club on Up All Night with Calum Macdonald on 5 Live.
Right, we've had heaps of texts. 85058. You've got a few minutes if you still want to get involved. Let's go through some of these and say hello to those of you who are up and about at 10 to 5 on a Friday morning. Steve from Darwin, he's a truck driver delivering food to the nation. He's been on the go since 2 a.m. Kerry in Cardiff is wide awake as they pulled their... is Kerry a boy or a girl's name in Wales? I'm so sorry, I don't know. Kerry is wide awake as I pulled my hamstring last night playing footy and icing it. It's rubbish. Alex Murray's been on from Fort William in the Highlands. Hello, Alex. Sandy in Fife says hello as well, as does Robert in Bristol. We've got Andrew Clark in the Early Risers Club this morning. He's a fishmonger on his way to serve the good people of Hoddesdon. Have a lovely day. Who else have we got? Marcus, who's driving from Leeds to Wales, and he says he loves the show. Thanks very much, Marcus. We love you too. Michael has been up all night gritting on the A9. He says it's very, very cold and take care on the roads today. The A9, of course, the main road from like Perth up to Inverness. And let's say good morning to Graham. Hi, Graham.
Morning.
Hiya, what on earth are you doing up at this time in the morning?
Good question. Well, we couldn't sleep, so we put the kettle on, have a nice cup of tea, we're listening to you on the radio and watching the Australian Open on the television.
That sounds all right. That's not too bad for a Friday morning, is it?
No, wide awake, strangely. I should be fast asleep, but wide awake.
Oh, is that going to ruin your day, or can you get off?
No, we'll be fine. Another cup of tea in a minute, maybe some toast.
Oh, lovely. Hey, that sounds all right. Maybe we all come round yours after we finish our night shift at 5.
Absolutely.
Where about?
Around about 6 o'clock and the washing up's just ready to be done.
Where about in the country are you, Graham?
We're in Howden in East Yorkshire.
Oh, lovely. And what is it you do?
Retired.
Lovely. Hey, that sounds all right.
So loads of time to recover tomorrow.
Oh, nice one. Well, you can always stay up all night. Thanks for your company, Graham. Nice to hear from you.
No problem.
Thanks for coming on. Good to chat. Cheers. Paul T is texted as well, 85058. He says he's up this early because he's taking 180 passengers to Malaga, which he says is quite normal because he's a pilot. That's pretty cool. Hi, Paul. Finbar in Reading says he's up at 4 on the rowing machine, training for 15,000 metres in under an hour. No thanks. Jeff says he's awake because of pain in his back. Not so good. Get well soon. Wayne from Cambridge is on. He's a chauffeur driver. He's been up since 3:40. He's en route to Heathrow to meet a flight that's landing at 5:20. Nice one. Hello, Wayne. Good morning. And we've also got one here from Robert in Bristol to say hello to. Hello again. How are you? There's a teacher up at this time in the morning marking. No thanks, that doesn't sound that fun. But good luck with that. I hope you're giving them all A's. Full marks for everyone. Here we are with Richard, who is up to milk 230 cows as we do 24/7. That's a lot of milk, isn't it? 24/7. Please give us a shout out to help start the day. Well, we don't really do shout outs, Richard, but morning, nice to see you. And who else have we got? Here's this is a great one from Tony, who's listening in Sweden and making brekkie for some hungry skiers. The temperature there is -8 with snow. I don't know if I can say that on the radio. Snow all over the place. Tony says he also loves the Early Risers Club name. Thank you so much for all your texts. This is amazing. I'm loving it. We've got, and I'll finish with this one, because my family live on the Isle of Lewis, which will mean something to Gav, who's on his way to Glasgow to see his partner, and he's driving from the Isle of North Uist in the Outer Hebrides. I've been there many, many times, Gav, and I hope you have a safe trip. Thank you all so much for your texts to us on the Early Risers Club. You're all very welcome, and I hope you have a lovely day for the rest of the day, and that it's not too painful that you've had to get up this early, and that you can all survive.
Early Risers Club on Up All Night with Calum Macdonald on 5 Live.
BBC 5 Live.
Coming up this Saturday on BBC 5 Live. Ahead of a packed weekend of sporting action. Start your Saturday with the Danny Baker Show from 9.
Oh, hang on, you know what we've got here? We've got monkeys dressed as famous people.
At 11, the gloves are off in Fighting Talk with Colin Murray.
Oh, man, that's the sound of home. Just singing We Ate Derby to a toddler.
And from 12, join 5 Live Sports for an afternoon of live sporting action.
In the penalty area, right footing, glorious goal!
This Saturday on BBC 5 Live.
This is Up All Night. It's 4:53. And what I want to do just now, actually, is you might be aware that basically the BBC loves having loads of meetings, and after every programme at 5 Live we have to have a debrief. But because it's the middle of the night and we're all pretty tired, we're all ready to go home, we've actually decided just to bring the debrief onto the radio. So I hope you'll bear with us as we go through some of the highlights of the night. And I want to start actually with Matt Deitsch, who is now the chief strategist at the March for Our Lives movement of mostly young people, but all kinds of people really across the United States. Of course, they campaign for tighter controls on gun ownership, and that's after the shooting in Florida at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, which was nearly a year ago. It was the 14th of February 2018. So we wanted to check in with the movement and with Matt from the movement, and he told us a little bit earlier on about how he felt about the resistance they faced to their campaign.
Standing up against the gun lobby is a winning issue. That is why this election in 2018 went the way that it did. The number one indicator that a young person was going to vote was whether or not they cared about stopping gun violence. And so what the gun lobby has said for so long, and the National Rifle Association, and these politicians that are okay taking money over protecting our lives, they like to say that this is a liberal issue. They try to label it. They try to use these predefined words that they understand that their base already sees as a negative in order to manipulate us to vote against our best interests. And so we're not going to allow that to stop us, because I've been all around this country and I've talked to thousands of gun owners. I've talked to people who are NRA members. I've talked to people who show up to our events with AR-15s meant to intimidate us, and they agree with our policy. They will fight for us now. And that is what is changing, because the people in Congress, the Senate Majority Leader, and the President need to know that we will not stop until we see these policies enacted, because our lives are on the line.
It's a really powerful conversation actually with Matt. He spoke very, very strongly and passionately about what March for Our Lives are up to. You can listen back, of course, on BBC Sounds. We spoke to Matt just after 1:15 this morning, if you want to check in on him and the movement there. And we'll keep in touch with them as well, I think, over the next few weeks and over this year as well, to see where they get to. Elsewhere then, on Up All Night tonight, we spoke to the Instagram fitness star Joe Delaney about a number of things actually. He's making a living basically from helping people keep fit via Instagram, and obviously he's in very, very good shape himself. But he had some wise things to say to us. He told us about fitness fads that are often sold by online influencers.
It comes down to your own ability to wade through the, and it is a real problem, because the thing that you see with people, especially in fitness, it's not always the most useful information that they're giving you. It's the information that's going to get the most traction on social media. So you see like a lot of people post workout videos doing like crazy exercises, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, this is not getting anyone anywhere. All it's achieving is making you good at this weird exercise.
That can feel really intimidating too.
Yeah, of
you're
course.
like, I can never do that in a million years.
But also, this is one of the reasons why people like PTs, because a PT will come and have you make up crazy exercises in the gym, and it'll be like, yeah, this week you're doing this, this week you're doing that, and people feel some sense of accomplishment about like they're doing the new thing that nobody else is doing. And yet, like you say, it is just a case of trying to look at things objectively, trying to weigh up the motive behind putting that information out. If you're profiting off helping people, then there is always a conflict of interest, and so people have to just be very wary of that. And if you see something or hear something from somebody and you're not sure about it, then take it upon yourself to research it, or ask them, say, where is this from? You know, does this supplement work? Is there any science behind this? Are there any studies you can reference?
Joe Delaney was a really fascinating conversation, actually. He's really, like, without wishing to sound patronising, he's really got his head screwed on, and he's doing some really cool stuff. So he's worth checking out just after 3:30 if you're listening back via the BBC Sounds app. Now, in a slightly bizarre twist, actually, we spoke to an ASMR YouTuber overnight as well, called Gibi, who told us how she got into these techniques that help people relax and help people sleep. Some of them are a bit weird, like listening to like water sounds, or running your fingers through a comb, for example. She told us all about ASMR and what it involves.
I actually was a listener forever. I started watching it about sophomore year of high school, so around 8 years ago. I was watching ASMR myself because I had terrible trouble falling asleep, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, restlessness. It's just like you can't turn your mind off. So I would just watch random YouTube videos, whatever I could find, until I basically just passed out. But I actually did one of those YouTube rabbit holes where I sort of just started falling into like these different videos, and I found the whispering community, which was just people whispering while they made videos, and that sort of turned into the ASMR community that we know now.
So like just people literally just whispering is considered as ASMR.
So
do you need to get that? All right, that's fine.
That was my alarm to be on the show, so we're all good.
Sorry, we got you on a bit early. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So yeah, is whispering a thing? Whispering is something that counts as ASMR.
It is. It's actually the most popular trigger is people's voices, either soft speaking or even, yes, whispering.
Wow. And is that something you do? Tell us what you kind of do on your channel. What are your sort of favourite techniques, I suppose? We'll demonstrate them in a minute, but what are your kind of favourite things to do?
I do like to do a lot of speaking, a lot of, the whispering and the soft speaking as well. I do a lot of role plays, which essentially will put somebody into the position of a relaxing scenario. So I'm speaking to the camera like it's a person, and somebody consuming that content, feels like they're there. And you use special microphones, so it really sounds like I can be in your ears. So you always want to be wearing headphones when you first try something like that.
ASMR with Gibi was at 2:15 on Up All Night. If you're listening back on BBC Sounds, thank you so much for being with us and bearing with us tonight. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jolan. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Will. 5 Live Breakfast along at 6. Morning Reports is up next with the morning's headlines. This is the BBC.
First for news and the best live sport. This is BBC 5